Welcome to the Marvel Alliance podcast, where we cover anything and everything to do with the Marvel Universe. From comics, TV, and movies, we go from the Mojoverse to Earth 616 to the Negative Zone to bring the Marvel Universe right to you. My name is the Uncanny Chris.
I am the podcaster of Mischief for the 10th time, trust now.
Alliance Assemble.
I lied, because I was not here last week but I was here in spirit. So in spirit, the 10th time. But yeah, I just have to shout out you and obviously Brent. You guys did a phenomenal job. I didn't really question that was going to be the case, but it was great because the good thing is that's what I love about fandom in general, of any fandom. You have people that are different levels and more into it. So I've always said that I love comics, but you definitely have the more comics knowledge than me. So hearing you and Brent when you guys got to the panels and that, and then also talking about his favorite arcs, that was you guys had a good conversation all around, but that was some really good stuff to listen to as far as just your guys' knowledge. So thanks again to Brent, and thank you for holding it down. It was a great listen. I was happy on Monday morning to see that on my feed. I was like, I'm not there, but I got to download and listen to it. It was a really good one. So if no one's listened to it, go back. It was a great episode.
Yeah, no, thank you again. Shout out to Brent for stepping in. It was a great conversation. Got a lot of positive feedback on it. So I told him he's got a standing invitation whenever he wants to. As he said, as he always can come on at that point, and we'll have some great conversations ahead of us. So yeah, glad y'all listened to that. And but yeah, we got a kind of a network kind of housekeeping to do, and an announcement, what we're going to be doing with Marvel Alliance in the future. So we want to hit some network plugs.
Yeah, well, let's see, what should I start with? We'll start with this week, and then we'll get into what Chris was talking about. So yeah, today, obviously Marvel right now, you got Marvel Monday, so that's great, but that's, hint, changing it a little bit here. Tuesday, you have DC Alliance. I'm not sure what they're going to be talking about this week. Obviously, you always got Stargirl and Doom Patrol, but I imagine DC News is going to be light for a little bit because fandom is coming up, and this is the Monday, but we can officially announce that the fandom as far as August 22nd. We don't know the schedule. Obviously, no one does. We just know it's a 24-hour event, so we're kind of waiting, so you'll hear more. But we're going to do a crossover as far as the GWA network and the GV network. We're going to do live coverage that day. You're going to get episodes on both feeds, so look up for that. But we're going to be doing, like we said, we have no if it's going to be like a Comic-Con, then we may do midday we'll break down these 4 panels, then the end of the night we'll come back and break some other. If it's kind of all this information at once, then that gives me a headache, and we'll figure out what to do, because I'm really hoping for that at 9. It's this. I'm really hoping, but that's what we can officially announce August 22nd. We'll be doing live coverage on YouTube, so that's going to be tons of fun. Wednesday, Chris, you are covering my favorite graphic novel of all time. I guess, it became a graphic novel, but still, what are you talking about this week on World's Finest True Believers?
Yeah, we've got a retro episode with my good friend Tim Rooney, the pun master himself. But this was his first appearance on the show, and he selected The Long Halloween and broke a lot of future listeners' hearts that had already been chosen. So, but yeah, it's a great discussion. A lot of how you say, lot of Easter eggs to even modern to films that this was a huge influence on besides the Dark Knight. Just mostly, look at mob movies, Godfather come along. So it was a great discussion. So I look forward to re-listening to that this week.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you. When you asked me to be on, I did a little gander, look through. I was like, oh, there it is. But that is one of those quintessential, if I have to talk about the 3 biggest or greatest arcs for me as far as Batman, to me, it's always that. You have Dark Knight Returns, Killing Joke, some of those just iconic tales. And that for me The Long Halloween is phenomenal. So I've listened to that episode before, but I could listen to it again because I can't hear enough about The Long Halloween. Long Halloween is just, I'm very much ready for it, because they announced a while back ago they're maybe going to do an animated film, so I hope they do it, and I hope it's better than Killing Joke, so fingers crossed. Thursday this week, Star Wars Alliance is back. I'm not sure if Katie's officially announced what's going on. I think she has. She is interviewing an editor that was a part of some of the Thrawn series books, so tune into that. And then also I think her and Nathan are just covering some news in general. But yeah, that's going to be Thursday. She's been really excited about that, and it's going to be the first kind of guest as far as on Star Wars Alliance, so I think that's going to be really good. And then Friday, just a big Batman week going on, because Friday is the World's Finest Crossovers. It is it's one of everyone's favorite animated episodes. I'm excited to hear
Mhm.
Greg's thoughts because this is Greg's first time watching it. So it's, as you've known, Superheroes Discussion is reviewing the entire Superman animated series, but they are finally at the Batman and Superman crossover with Joker and Lex, and yeah, that is just some of the best animation storytelling, and it was just fun. I remember seeing just later on, because I don't even think I'd seen that live for some reason. I remember seeing at like a Blockbuster that cover of Lex and Joker together and Batman and Superman, and oh, you peaked. So
I love that. If you peaked.
oh yeah, it's so good. So, and then on the Patreon, we just officially dropped. It took a little while because that's what happens when you have 7 people, but we have it there for July. The GUA, the network's entire top 10 comic book films. I think next week we're gonna release to the public just everyone's first pick, so you can get a little taste for it. And then if you want more, jump over to Patreon, and you get other stuff as far as the ad-free feed. You get episodes early at the $10 tier as well. You can also put in for, because we're gonna try and do this. Not we won't commit to every month, but try to be monthly, and we're going to have a top 10 and do rankings kind of like this. What happens is everyone puts forth their top 10 of what the topic is, and then we get an average of that list. And this one was the top 10 greatest comic book films. And then in the future, if you're a $10 tier, you can put in a topic, and we'll put that in a poll because we'll have some fans decide. So, and then finally, what's happening next week is we're going to be switching things up a little bit, not in August, for the foreseeable future. Is what we're going to be doing is Mondays is now going to be World's Finest True Believers, and then Wednesday's gonna be Marvel Alliance. This is something that me and Chris have wanted for a little bit. My schedule, and this is completely on me, so especially in the future, if you hear someone guest like a Brent or Taylor or someone else from the network, that's just on me because I work with hospitals and whatnot in Canada. So with COVID, even though things are better, if things spike, things like that, I'd never have a set schedule because it kind of depends on the work. So that's why at the beginning we kind of always wanted to do weekday, but Chris was nice enough because we've taken time out of his week and be like, let's do the Monday. But now my schedule has leveled out a little bit where I've been doing a bit more time for Chris and I to have time to do this. So we've kind of always wanted this. So that's going to be the plan. We're going to do Wednesdays. And like I said, whether it's Chris or someone, myself or someone, or Chris and I, it's going to be there. And I'm excited because I've always wanted to do the weekdays because I like having the news midweek, because sometimes stuff breaks and we got to wait a little week. So yeah, how do you feel about this?
No, it's great. I'm sorry to the listeners that we're switching up things on you, but as kind of Travis said, we both have families, both have lives. We do record this on Sundays, and so even though we like our downtime, since I'm a school administrator, you're working the hospital system. We both have pretty, sometimes demanding jobs.
Oh, yeah.
That we look forward to just a break. Podcasting is great, but some of our families don't get to see us as often during the week at that point. So weekends we kind of hold to our families and have that kind of rest time. But yeah, the good thing about World's Finest True Believers is that I record these a month out. So that way I have some stuff that's already in the process of, so moving it to another day really doesn't affect that kind of schedule at all. So it was the easiest move. So I'm excited. Like you said, we get to, have a little bit of evening conversations of looking at hopefully some news dropping. We got a lot of news to talk about today, but yeah. So yeah, listeners, next week begins the new. So instead of, you will begin your week with World's Finest True Believers, and then midweek, Marvel Alliance. That is the only switch right now, and I think it's a good one.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like we talked about just now, there's some good potential for news-wise, and it's just good because, like Chris talks about, I'm always truthful with the viewers and listeners, and that's a good thing with our schedule now. We can kind of switch it as times where we can do that when, our kids are asleep and stuff like that, and I think that's something that everybody that listens, that they have a family and whatnot, can appreciate. So, and like I said, I've always wanted to do weekday, but it just, the Monday worked better, so I'm excited for that to start next week, and like I said, whoever's ever on, it's going to be great because you saw what happened in the episode without me. Chris did a phenomenal job, so we have no worries, and there's been people I've already talked to. We have a guest maybe from DC Alliance with Travis in the title that he's been itching. He asked, he said, are you guys reviewing that Avengers game? And I said, well, we're definitely going to talk about it. So they always said, get me in. And he also is preparing some Fact or Fiction. So that's kind of fun. So look on September. We're going to have probably Travis jump on here, and there's probably a slew of other people. I want to get Brent on in the future with all three of us. That'd be fun. I think I originally planned to try and get him on when Venom was going to be coming, Morbius, because I thought I wanted to kind of do a rundown of the Sony Spider-Man universe, just talk about what's going on there. So that's kind of one of banked that I'd love to have him on because I know he's a massive Spider-Man guy. So news time.
Yeah, he's interesting on the Sony universe at that point. I know he's not the biggest fan of Venom at that point, but Morbius, I'll be interested to see
It sounds like
his opinion.
it sounds like he's made a deal with the devil, because I remember that was the first conversation him and I had when we guested on Civil Servants. He's like, you know what, I don't like what they're doing. I don't like these movies, but it gives me Tom Holland in the MCU. Keep doing it. And I have the complete opposite.
Yep.
I had the complete opposite outlook of when there was those rumors of them bringing over like Tom Hardy. I was like, get Tom Holland out of here. I don't want Carnage. I don't want this. I don't want this type of stuff in MCU. So that's why I think one day it'll be a fun conversation. And stay tuned later on Factor Fiction. I might have a Spider-Man universe Factor Fiction, because it is my week. I can't wait to talk about some of those ones too when we get to the polls. You guys had some interesting conversations. I didn't think Bagman was going to come up in our first 10 episodes, but it did. So yeah.
Yes, it did. All right. So we also switched some things up. We're going to move some fan feedback to towards the end of the show at that point, along with Factor Fiction. So we're just going to jump right into our first story, kind of our main topic. News story came out from the Direct. Captain Marvel 2 will feature Miss Marvel and other Avengers. It is exclusive on to them. They said, according to their reliable sources within Marvel, they say that Miss Marvel will appear in the Captain Marvel sequel, and this is Kamala Khan. So we do already know that Kamala Khan's Miss Marvel will be coming to Disney Plus, but this sounds like, I guess it's a question about where this is going to be fitting in the timeline for that show and the movie. And I've always said I'm excited about seeing this character finally depicted on either both small and the big screen. But it was only a matter of time before we were going to see those two on the screen. I like the idea of possibly her being Captain Marvel being the mentor, because Kamala Khan, this is what she based her character on in the sense of her costume and everything like that. But the big little tidbit that kind of got a little bit buried was that the storyline is going to have other Marvel characters. So it's going to be kind of like Civil War, a mini Avengers film, but it's also going to adapt the Secret Avengers comic storyline. So this is a rumor, but they claim they have good knowledge. But we've been seeing Secret Avengers being kicked around for a while, but this is the first kind of where it could be linked to is Captain Marvel 2. So what do you feel about that?
It was Secret Invasion, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. What did I say?
Secret Avengers.
Secret Avengers. Oh, there we go. So, yeah.
That's fine.
Secret Avengers is a really cool storyline at that point. But, yes, this is the first time we're going to see Secret Invasion finally tied to a film, because it has been kicked around for a while. And I think it's, considering what Captain Marvel did the first time around with the Kree and the Skrulls, I've been saying since that introduction, of them saying Secret Invasion's coming. And then what happened, and last night, even though I knew it was Spider-Man Day, my wife had yet to see Far From Home. We watched Spider-Man Far From Home. So it's just like, ooh, good timing.
Yeah. No, I was not trying to be that guy, because I hated podcasts if someone just me speaks like, oh, did you mean? I just was like having a mini panic attack of, have I read this headline wrong the entire week and I'm not prepared for this topic? I'm like, I did not know that's what was going on. So you and I have talked about this before. We talked about this in our first episode. We're big fans of this storyline. I think that, so obviously, like Chris said, these are just rumors, no trades, but we like to talk about them, have some fun. I think Miss Marvel, that makes sense. That was kind of a guarantee she's going to be in that. As far as when she appears, because you and Brent talked about last week, as far as there's been rumors that she may appear somewhere before a show, and you brought up a great point to me and on the show where it can be Kamala Khan, right? She doesn't have to be fully formed Miss Marvel. I think, the shows, and I think we've kind of known this, that Brent said this last week as well, too, along with Miles Morales. I think they're very much in the Miss Marvel camp of they want this character to be around quite a bit. And if these rumors are true, as far as she cameos somewhere else, she has her own show, she's in this movie, they got a lot of stock. And that also means whoever they cast, they got to really trust. So that's one. Two, this storyline makes sense because it was set up. And I like these rumors because I've been saying on Geekverse, I've been saying for a while that I thought Captain Marvel was going to be the next big crossover, because we don't have a big crossover in Phase 4, do we, at this moment, right? There's nothing on the docket that we know of.
Nothing confirmed. Again, I mean, like they said, this story says it's supposed to be a mini Avengers film, but again, this is based on their unnamed reliable sources. Again, the Direct's broken some stuff, so I mean, like with everything, they have their successes and they also have some stuff that they get wrong. But they seem pretty confident about this one. Yeah,
so I think it's warranted, because if we go Phase 4 with, maybe you'll have some crossover, right? You have a character here and there, but as far as a big event crossover, we had Avengers, we had Ultron, we had Civil War, and then we had the two Infinity War and Endgame. Those were lots of crossovers. Phase 4 is definitely that. Meet some new heroes. Let's let the dust settle. Let's kind of show you this new universe. And then Captain Marvel 2, I believe it either was that or Black Panther. That's supposed to be the first film of Phase 5, at least in the first year. And that would make sense that, okay, we're going to get 2 to 3 years of solo new films or some sequels, and then boom, you get a big crossover. I think this makes a lot of sense. I always thought with her character, as far as being a sequel and wanting to raise that stock, that they would put her and some other heroes together. I didn't know they were maybe going to make it a big event. And the other thing that I've heard that is good, because I'm the same as you, I don't want this to be a one film and done, but there was rumors, I think months ago, I think maybe before we started this podcast, that there was talks of it being like a TV show as far as, or something on Disney Plus. My thinking is, if there's a bunch of rumors, sometimes it's kind of, some people don't have the exact information, but they have snippets of it. I wonder if Miss Marvel's show and another show in the Captain Marvel 2, some Disney Plus stuff is going to tackle the Skrull invasion, and they will make it a big event, and it's not just going to be, okay, secret invasion, boom, it's Captain Marvel 2, and then we move on, it's finished. I think you may see it sprinkled, and that's great. I think it's a fun storyline. I think there's tons of potential. The Skrulls have been set in, like you said, in Spider-Man and Captain Marvel. The audience, general audience knows, oh, there are shape-shifting aliens now. So yeah, I'm all for this, obviously.
Yeah, it's a great, really cool storyline. I mean, we're ending Civil War today, which had a great tagline, whose side are you on?
Mm-hmm.
The tagline for this series was, who do you trust?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, this dates back, and again, it's a little bit of, some would say a little bit of retconning and things like that. I mean, this dates all the way back to the Kree-Skrull War. It dates to the Illuminati. It dates to, I mean, this was a massive stuff going on, quote unquote, behind the scenes of this supposed infiltration by the Skrulls. So, and I said it since the beginning, when people were so upset about, spoiler alert, the Skrulls are quote unquote the good guys in Captain Marvel. It's like, guess what? Like with every group of beings, there are some that don't want to subscribe to being quote unquote the good guys. Mm-hmm. It's not hard to kind of to make that a reality. Not everyone may be wanting to work with the humans.
Yeah, so what we did is, because we heard the Miss Marvel and then other Avengers, we've kind of done this before where I pick 3 and Chris picks 3. What we're going to do is we're going to pick 3 that we think are most likely. I'm not sure. Well, I'm not sure. Did you go most likely or most want? I went most likely of who I think would appear in this film, if this is true. Watch them come out tomorrow and just announce, no, it's Captain Marvel 2. It's just a prequel about Endgame. But I went with most likely. What was your criteria for your 3 that you picked?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some that I've mentioned or fans have mentioned before, but I also went with what could be plausible, mm-hmm. considering the storyline, and not necessarily it, like with everything. It doesn't have to totally be based on like page to screen at that point. But yeah, I went with a few in, pretty much what I think could happen.
Okay, so I'll take the first choice because I'm making my return here. It's volume 10. I'm excited. I'm gonna go with, this is something that people, if they follow me, know I've been talking about this for a while. It's Spider-Man, aka Peter Parker. I just think, I was looking at that Sony deal when they remade it, and I went, where is Spider-Man going to appear? And then we got that Phase 4, and I was like, okay, obviously he's in the Phase 4, but I mean, as far as another film, there's no film that warrants a Spider-Man appearance to me to get the full potential, because it seems to me Civil War, Endgame, Infinity War, they want it to be when they want Spider-Man around when it's the biggest event, get the most out of him. I still think you could do maybe one day a Spider-Man and the X-Men, something like that, even Spider-Man and Daredevil. I'm like Brent, I hope that happens one day. But as far as right now, I think they like them being these big crossovers. You have some little fun connection as far as like, hey, Peter Parker, like they had some little interaction so you could revisit that. And I think also in Peter Parker's life, there's many people you could have as a Skrull. Aunt May, and honestly, I don't know why Aunt May's a Skrull, but maybe it's just like someone's watching Spider-Man, right? Like we already saw Spider-Man have Skrulls in his film, so to me it's a natural jumping off point. It's not like some other characters that they're going to be introduced. Obviously he didn't know, but as the viewers watching, you knew, oh, these Skrulls are in Spider-Man. So I think it's a natural progression, and like I said, I just think the bare bones, it's a crossover. They want for a crossover. I don't see, even with the Phase 5 stuff, they haven't given us the slate, but they have said, okay, Black Panther, Captain Marvel, Ant-Man, and Guardians. Those are all getting sequels in Phase 5. They've not once come out and said, this is the big crossover. We still don't know. There might not even be an Avengers film in Phase 5, right? They may say that for Phase 6 and may really make us wait for it, and this might be the crossover. So I'm saying Spider-Man, as far as a 1 I think it'll be good, but 2, I think it's the most likely candidate other than Miss Marvel.
Okay. I'm going to go with one that we haven't seen. I've got basically all three of mine are ones we haven't seen.
Okay.
And I'm going to go Reed Richards in this
Oh,
one. It would be just in the sense of, he's the scientist on the ground. Do we get the whole Fantastic Four in this one? Maybe, but I could just see maybe Reed and Sue
yeah.
at that point. If I wanted to, being the scientist, looking at to what could have possibly happened, how could they have gotten here? In that sense, like where are all these Skrulls coming from and taking over? Because again, there's the Skrull Empire is vast, but they're looking for a homeworld. So how are they all getting here under the nose of, as we left it, Nick Fury? What happened? You can get a small contingent, moles in the midst and transporting, but I'm wondering how they got here, and he could be the one trying to figure that out.
I agree, because we've kind of theorized before. Go back to our Fantastic Four episode, we did a whole talk dedicated to them. I think there is a good chance that even if it is just Reed Richards and not Mr. Fantastic, right? This could be that this is setting that up, and there's precedence for Age of Ultron, Civil War, using these crossovers to introduce new characters. So I think as far as characters that have not debuted, that's very likely. Because I still think the best way to bring them back is, okay, it's a crossover. Let people kind of know, get them excited for this character. So when we announce, hey, we're doing a solo film, people are already excited. So I think that's a great choice. I went with War Machine, aka Rhodey. I think they have obviously a history in comic books, right? I don't know if they're going to do that in the movies. There is an age difference, and obviously people have gone back and forth. We don't know if it's true, but there's been lots of people theorizing that they might kind of make Captain Marvel a gay character. We don't know that. That's kind of just more fan speculation and whatnot, but you never know, right? Marvel's talked about diversity. You guys talk about other factor fiction and changing it up, so you never know. They could easily change that up. So I just went as far as two reasons. One, they still, even though not the romantic connection they have in the comic books, they look like they had some sort of connection in Endgame. I always remember, and that might just be a tip of the hat to the comic books, of her just being like, oh, like, good luck talking to Black Widow about Hawkeye. She was the last one to like really say like, oh, good luck. Like, I'm hoping for the best for you. So it looks like, at least as far as a friendship, they've built that, and they maybe talk more than other the Avengers. And two, I've just thought about, since we as of right now don't officially have an Ironheart series announced, and Tony has died, spoilers for Endgame, I don't know where else we see War Machine. I've been thinking it's kind of like with Spider-Man the crossover, when I was looking at where could he fit. The same thing with Rhodey. I've been looking at other movies, where could he fit? Because I don't want that a character just to go away. Because if he just goes away, in my opinion, then they should have gave him a send-off in Endgame as well. Maybe it would have been a lot of death going on, but still, we lost a lot of people. And because I've kind of had that argument before, is I sometimes think that Nick Fury maybe could have passed away a few phases ago. Because now I wonder, I'm hoping they build that character back up, but there was a time where I thought, it's not going to mean as much anymore because he's been just so away. It looks like now with Spider-Man Far From Home and what he's up to, maybe he's going to have a bigger role. I just wonder if he has, speaking about War Machine, a bigger role in the future. So this is where I could see him. I don't think I would see him get killed off here. I think they might be saving him for an Ironheart series, but I just see him being one of those kind of side players. Not one of the main one, but kind of like he was in Endgame or Civil War. I could see him being around. He's always involved with the government, right? So that he could kind of use that function. So I could see him making an appearance or being a semi-side main character.
Okay. All right. I like that. I can definitely see that. My next one is Nova, Richard Rider. Being that we've heard from Feige a while ago that this next couple of phases were going to be very cosmic, and can't get any more cosmic than Secret Invasion. But, before Secret Invasion happened, we had the Annihilation Wave. We had all that kind of storyline where Nova kind of had to get reestablished into the cosmic universe for a quote unquote modern day audience. So what better way than, we know, quote unquote, the Nova Corps was destroyed off screen by Thanos in order to, we don't know how badly, but we're pretty sure that's how he got back the stone that they had. And so what better way to reintroduce them post Endgame is to bring one of the Nova Corps members, Richard Rider, into the forefront of this and him being involved. Now, whether it be, he's been a Nova Corps member or he's a new member, and because he's Earth-based at that point, it would be interesting to see, but I could see him playing a part in this.
Poor John C. Reilly didn't get that on-screen death. You know, he's introducing Guardians, him and Glenn Close, and they're just gone. They're just gone now. Yeah, that's a good. You're pitching like the you're pitching the ultimate. The fans are loving your movie. You got Reed Richards and potentially Sue Storm. You got Nova, who everyone's been asking about. Soon this guy's.
Yeah, I guess I kind of cheated with 3 characters and put Reed Richards and said, no, Sue's not going to be there. No, I guess we gotta have to have Sue. So I kind of cheated with 4. That was not my intent, but
that's okay.
But I just like I said with Reed, it's cool having the scientists on the ground. And I like your idea even better that it could be pre getting their gifts, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the reason I said it's okay is because I maybe have a semi-cheat coming up here. So I went with She-Hulk, but She-Hulk with the addendum of maybe Bruce Banner / Smart Hulk comes with there. Because originally I had Smart Hulk as almost the same role that you had, as far as obviously Smart Hulk's not a like space scientist, but he didn't know, like, he wasn't a time travel scientist, and you know, he obviously Tony did a lot better, but he started to work in that realm, right? He's a smart guy. He might just even be brought to do experiments on the Skrulls, or just like look at them, figure things out. So it kind of my way of Spider-Man's that kind of, you know, character we all love, the fighter. War Machine was that kind of government guy, and Bruce Banner is kind of the, okay, you have the scientist round. But She-Hulk, I just think because that is another thing I've been looking at the slate to go, where could you introduce her? And she's somebody that her show comes out. If that's the weird thing in this COVID times, that the slate could completely get jumbled up, right? So before it was She-Hulk's, before it might be after. But my mindset of if we're working with the original one was, she comes in, has her show, and that's a way to introduce her to the movies, to the general audience, and then maybe if people haven't seen that show, oh, I really liked this character. There's a whole 6-episode, 8-episode show about her. Great, I'm going to go check that out. And then you kind of get reaffiliated. And I also just think it could work. I think you need a Hulk-like character. I know some people have a theory that Hulk may get back to being angry. I kind of hope that does happen eventually, but I don't know if they're going to pull the trigger yet. So obviously she's not the same as Hulk as being angry, but Smart Hulk was not a fighter. You know, he hated fighting. Look at that scene in Endgame when he has to take off. She's like, rah, you know, like he's not about the violence. Where She-Hulk, I'm not saying she's about the violence, but she's definitely down to kick some ass, right? She's there if it comes time. If you know the law doesn't work, her fists are gonna work. So I just feel like there's a way that she could be brought in, whether she is with Shield, whether it's, I don't think it's anything cute like someone needs a Laura. I just think she would be established at this point, and it's kind of like Ant-Man, where he was established but he hadn't met the group. That's what this could be, as far as, hey, we need a team, and Bruce Banner being like, well, I know someone, and then you bring her in. So, and maybe I think Bruce Banner will be in that show, but if not, maybe that's the way they formally introduce those two together. I just think there's lots of options, and I think she could fit well. She doesn't tie as much as kind of like what you have going on with Reed and Nova. I just kind of think that there's certain characters they'll bring in that, you know, just to give them some shine, and I think She-Hulk would be one of those.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't, you know, reading, you know, as I talked about last week, reading a little bit of Empire, I don't like the portrayal of She-Hulk right now being that, you know, with the original with She-Hulk, like her intelligence got boosted with becoming that, where she is right now. She's, and you know, just she's back to being what Bruce was, the not necessarily totally mindless, but it's not the same. I'm not a fan of what they've done with She-Hulk right now. I mean, so I like how seeing Jessica, when she becomes Hulk, becomes even smarter, and she knows she can turn it on at that point to go Hulk, but she never seems to lose her intelligence at that point.
Yeah, it makes her more unique too, because I haven't read much of Empire. I was interested in it, but it came out, and kind of like what you and Brent were talking about, as far as I always have my eyes on crossovers because it's fun, but I didn't hear anyone telling you gotta read this, and that's why when
and I'm not telling you that either.
Yeah, and that's where what is that new one? The Black King, or the King is Black? What is that one coming up with the Venom kind of crossover world? So that's the reason why I'm excited, and I think I'm gonna read up on that just because so many people have said the stuff that came before it was really good, but lately Marvel, and you guys again touched upon this, for their crossovers, nothing really has connected with me. It's funny that Civil War was our first comic book club, and there's other ones I feel like in those 2000s they are doing a great job. I feel like their last good one was X-Men Avengers, but I just say that was good. I don't even think that was great. I think that was fun, but I don't think it reached the heights. Even Civil War 2, which I was a bigger fan of a lot of other people. A lot of people really dislike Civil War 2. I think there's some merit to it, but it didn't it didn't match this. So that's kind of disappointing. I didn't know that they were doing that with She-Hulk. That's disappointing because to me, that's what Hulk for. You don't want to make that's the worst thing that can happen with these characters that take on a legacy is you don't want them just to become the same as their predecessor because then it's just it's just a female version. Oh, it's just this version. Oh, it's just a new version of Batman, of this, of Hulk, Spider-Man. You want it to be, no, this is She-Hulk. This is this character alone. So yeah, that's disappointing. I don't want that in the MCU. I hope they don't go that route.
Yeah, I don't think they will. And again, it's just it just wasn't when I saw it. It kind of took me by surprise at that point. And it's just I like the old Jessica where she was, or why do I keep saying it? It's Jennifer?
Jennifer,
right?
Yeah, Jennifer Walters.
Jennifer.
Yeah,
that's two today.
One more and you're out. One more.
I'm out.
Yeah,
one more.
And I just do a solo cast. I talk about we're all alone. But yeah, who's your final?
Jennifer Walters.
Yeah.
Yes. I have an idea of why I'm saying Jessica a lot because my final choice is Jessica Drew, the Spider-Woman.
Really? That is a wild one.
That's why I kept on saying Jessica. No, it's not Jessica. Jennifer. So yes, I like the way going back to She-Hulk. I like the way that Jennifer has been portrayed in the past and until fairly recently. But yes, my final choice is Spider-Woman being in it, and she was a huge part of Secret Invasion, and I think it's. As a tip of the hat to the fans, as introducing this character, being that we're not sure of the Black Widow status in post Black Widow, we need a new kind of behind the scenes, can be the mole on both sides, and I'm not going to reveal too much about Jessica's role in Secret Invasion, but it's big. It's fairly significant at that point, and I would think this would be an awesome way for her introduction to be like she was there. Nick Fury's kind of new double agent at that point and trying to figure out what's going on above and below ground.
So my question is, do we know she's owned by Sony, right? You would think. Like just the film rights? That's the only thing that always troubles me as far as those characters. Like, how does that work, you know? And Brent
he'll probably respond to us when this drops at that point in time, correcting me. I think part of the deal is like where the character has mainly been in.
Okay.
And I'm fairly confident if what she obviously has had dealings with Spider-Man, I think she is more of a quote unquote Avengers side than Spider-Man if we had to do percentages.
Mm-hmm. That would be wild if that'd be a mega announcement if that happened. My question to you is, let's say that doesn't happen, and let's say Yelena is the Black Widow. Would they just kind of, they've done this in the movies, would they lift that storyline and give it to her, you think? Or is there any character that we kind of know of right now they may give it to? Because I'm thinking what if they can't do Spider-Woman? Is there anyone that, this could kind of be the natural progression as far as, okay, this takes her slot?
Yeah, Yelena. I mean, Yelena is the easy one, but we don't. That's the thing. I'm not sure if she's going to be the one. Is Yelena going to want to be a part of any organization? Mm-hmm. You know, at post Black Widow. You know, that would be interesting. Can she just be her own kind of, one woman war on everything? You know, and I think that would be even cooler is for her not being part, just saying she is our kind of merc on the ground that's going to do the right thing and not be part of Nick Fury. She doesn't want to be. I could see her saying, "I don't want to be my sister. I'm not going to be. I may be taking the code name of Black Widow, but I'm my own person." So thank you, but no thank you, Mr. Fury.
Yeah, no, that would be that. Like I said, your movie is the much cooler movie than mine. Your movie is like every fanboy and fangirl's dream, like Spider-Woman, Reed.
None of it's gonna happen.
I won't say no. I think those two, the first two, are very likely. My thing is, I think they'd go one or the other. I think they either go, we're going Nova or we're going Fantastic Four or like whatever. Read some characters. I don't think they'd do them both because they might want to save it. Spider-Woman, I can never comment just because with the rights thing, right? If I knew, oh, hey, they 100% have it, I'd go, you know what, they could, because maybe there's a way of they introduce Spider-Woman, and if Tom Holland's Spider-Man is on his way out, but they have them kind of the same way they had Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, then there you go, that's your new Spider character. But if there's something that comes out, they go, no, Sony owns, it's like, well, does that mean we have to like trade and we get Woody Harrelson's Carnage in Secret Invasion? Because I don't want that. If I love
Let there be carnage.
Let there be there's gonna be a secret invasion. That's all his lines. Just there's gonna be whatever the title of the movie is. So I still can't believe Venom 2 is titled Venom There Will Be Carnage. Are you kidding me? What is happening in our world? Why is that an actual movie title? But I digress. So yeah, let us know down below. We'll probably tweet this out like Fact or Fiction. We'll tweet this out. Let us know people you think that whether you want to be in it or you think could be in it. And yeah, and then before we get to other news, I just wanted to throw to our quick ad break. What we do here is sometimes it all kind of depends, I think, of where you're listening, but sometimes ads can be a little loud. So maybe just prepare yourself, turn them down. But this helps grow the network, especially in August. You're going to hear some announcements that helped grow the network. That helps us do many other things as far as meet new people, make connections, and that's all because of you guys. So we appreciate that very much. So we're going to throw to an ad, and then we'll be right back with the rest of our news. All right, we're back. So, Chris, we got some more news to talk about this week. I'm sure.
Yeah,
we got a couple not good ones yet.
Yeah, we'll promise to end better than we're continuing at this. But we started good with the Captain Marvel news at this point. These next two, and I do want to say this next one, just list a trigger warning. We will be. This is a story that does deal with sexual assault. At that point, with a very famous director that has ties to Marvel. At that point, that Hollywood Reporter broke. So just want to state that up front for any of I don't know how long. Maybe give it about 10 minutes or so, because we'll probably have some things we're discussing. But
I'll put a time code for this one. I'll do that. So like even if there's some people that go that they know the story and they just don't want to hear it talked about, they could skip it as well, because it is more mature subject matter. So usually I just go news, but I will put in just a news talk for this one, and even the second one. Well, no, the second one I won't, because it's a bit more. Yeah.
The second one's still awful, but not in. It's still terrible, but it's not. It doesn't involve this kind of this kind of description.
Yeah,
and we'll both do our best to not be as overt by it, but this was a story from Hollywood Reporter did a huge expose. The writer Tatiana Siegel titled Bryan Singer's traumatic X-Men set, the movie created a monster. This broke on, I believe, on Friday afternoon. I think it started really making traction. And so basically, for those that don't know, Bryan Singer was the director of, we've got the X-Men movie, X2, Days of Future Past, and X-Men Apocalypse. He, in number of recent years, have come under a lot of fire, and as this will go on, to being accused of some pretty awful stuff, sexual assault and sometimes rape for individuals that in past dealings. And this kind of looks at not only those accusations, but also his behavior on the set of X-Men and X2, which really brought forward in Bohemian Rhapsody, when he kind of flamed out and disappeared. They had to basically fire him off the project as well. So I don't even know where to start with this.
Yeah, I guess do you want to read some, or I was just gonna...
I'll read a couple of things. Like, one of the things that kind of started off was the producer of X-Men. Her name's Lauren Schuler Donner, and said it's a weird business, the film business. We honor creativity and talent, and we forgive the brilliant ones. Unconsciously, we probably do enable them by turning a blind eye to whatever they're doing and taking their product and putting it out in the world. And that is a very true statement, in the sense of what they basically let Singer get away with so many different times on it. It goes in, he had allegations of 2 minors that were ordered to perform in the nude on another film that was settled outside of court. That Singer was named a defendant on. It went into, like, even the writing stuff was even more strange. How I forgot that Christopher McQuarrie of Mission Impossible fame had, done a treatment of it at that point. Another person did a treatment of it. and I think it was named DeSanto, and then this other guy, David Hayter, who Hayter, not David Hayter. Totally different.
Different
Totally
movie.
different. But he was serving as Singer's assistant and was answering the phones for $500 a week. And Singer apparently ended up going to him, and he started making huge edits to the movie. And about 55% of the script was tied to them. And McQuarrie had found out, and they just wanted no part of it so badly, that the Writers Guild Association had to get involved and saying, well, you don't have to, what was it? I'm trying to find the words. So angry that studio that tortured process had been persuaded Solomon to remove his name along with his own from the film, and declined to comment for the story. But it basically took the WGA to get involved in saying, well, they have you can't necessarily just totally remove them, but you don't have to, the artists don't have to acknowledge it, which was just wild. That was like the least scandalous stuff about this. But then it goes on to this actor who at the time in the movie was portraying Pyro. His name's Alex Burton. And basically at some point during the film, a number of times was sexually assaulted by, looks like, two of Singer's quote unquote friends at this point in the movie. And at one point this actor didn't continue on as Pyro. It was recast at that point, but he was he did sue for what had occurred on set. I think it said it was joined by two others, and the suit was awarded $6 million. The amount was never paid. And in November 2019, Burton's lawyer filed a renewal of the judgment against the individuals at that point, citing an additional $4.8 million accrued interest. So that is, just to say it's awful that occurred is an understatement. This is just intolerable. And then it gets into Singer's not only behavior on the set, looking back at, he had a huge drug problem on set, late arrival on set, mood swings. Sometimes, like, for instance, we know how, at one point they had to send a very young Kevin Feige over there to keep him in line.
Yeah.
An X2, so erratic behavior that they started having on the set fights between him and DeSanto, one of the producers. And basically DeSanto left and Singer wanted him fired, so much so that it upset the cast, so much so that the cast, including Halle Berry, were in their costumes, went to Singer and said they would walk if they didn't get DeSanto back, who was the producer that was trying to protect the cast away from Singer. And this is supposedly when Barry famously told Singer, "You can kiss my black ass," but no one's been able to understand the context of that until supposedly now. And his whole behavior on set, like Mystique and Rebecca Romaine, would sometimes be ready in costume, and that took hours to get her in, and say, you know what? He'd be like, "No, we're not doing this scene. We're doing something else." He's been linked to so many different sexual assault cases during this time, after this time. In what was it? In Superman Returns, he was linked to another, assaulting a young boy at that point. He's just saying he's scum of the earth is putting it lightly.
Yeah, honestly, like you said at the beginning, this is a super tough situation to talk about. So it's tough because we see this all the time, right? We kind of even see this right now with what's happening with Ray Fisher and Joss Whedon, where there's, a debate going on, and he's saying some things, and none of them have really been shot down, and other people are backing up Ray Fisher. And it's tough when we saw that a lot with Kevin Spacey, but I had it a bit more when I was younger as far as the kind of art and the artists and terrible people and what do you do. And that's the thing where in Hollywood, that quote when she said Hollywood's a weird place. Yeah, it is. And sometimes
and she's part of the problem.
And yeah, sometimes not for the right reasons. It's not weird and like, oh yeah, that's just what happened. It's just a lot of things when it was early Hollywood happened, and then it was laid out almost like a Bible or etched in stone of like, well, this is the way things go. Luckily, things are changing, but there's still, look at what stuff that's happening with the Ellen DeGeneres show right now. There's still stuff in today's day and age where you think that shouldn't be happening anymore, but it does. Luckily, and hopefully it gets called up more and it stops. But with Bryan Singer, that's the case that shows you direct one great film, which is A Usual Suspects, which is, again, separate art from artist. It's a phenomenal movie.
And interestingly enough, Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, and Kevin Spacey. Yeah, they were good friends. And that's the thing that is crazy because he directed this film, and we've heard these problems before. I'm somebody that when I started podcasts, you go back way back, Dynamic Duo, I used to host a spin-off show with Geek First, and it was with Liam and Kyle, and Liam was not a friend of Bryan Singer. He's the one that brought up these things to my attention because I actually didn't know this because there's just, unfortunately, so much bad stuff, but I didn't look into any of this. I didn't know about this, and then he kind of brought it to my attention, and I do always go that, okay, well, you can't, innocent till proven guilty. But then it's just like over the years how much more has come out, and then it's just again and again. It's just one of those things where, I can't believe that all these claims are false. There's definitely some people out there that could claim false to try and get some money and things like that, but it's just eventually you got to read the room. And that's the thing with Bryan Singer too, which sucks, is because there's many people that in Hollywood, and even I think Hugh Jackman has talked about before when, lots of this stuff had come out, that they had good experiences with them, or they are friendly or friends and stuff. Like there's times even after some of these scandals, I caught Hugh Jackman on late night talk shows, he would say the director of X-Men, but he wouldn't say Bryan Singer, but he'd be talking about great stories. And I'm not condemning Hugh Jackman because it's just like that was a stories talk show, but people have fond memories of him. That's the thing, same with Kevin Spacey. There's a side of people that hate Kevin Spacey and knew this terrible person, but then there's a side where it seemed like he was everybody's brother or uncle, like there was this the lovable Kevin Spacey. So it's tough, but obviously people have to be held accountable to what happens nowadays. It's tough again because sometimes of this is public court versus an actual court. So I kind of hope in the future that these people just don't get these opportunities. Well, I hope in the future these people get punished and get what they deserve, but we have a flawed system, unfortunately, as far as Hollywood and just life in general, sometimes when it comes to law and statute of limitations and whatnot. So that's the thing where I just kind of hope these people disappear and don't get the work. Like I said, I'd like them to be punished so they don't hurt anymore, but I don't want them to be actively getting work. Obviously, with Bohemian Rhapsody, that was a big thing. And the Guild thing, I know the Guild have these rules, but sometimes to me, these rules don't make sense because I don't understand how they talk about percentages, but like Lord Miller on Solo didn't get credit, Ron Howard did, but somehow Zack Snyder got credit for the Justice League film, which he says is like like a 1/3 of his footage, which if you look at the rules, that would mean it shouldn't be listed as Zack Snyder, but then it kind of feels like, just put his name on it because this is a garbage fire and we're going to throw him out there. So they can say, oh, it's a guild, this and that, but that guild comes from Hollywood, which Hollywood already has a lot of problems. This comes from someone that loves film. I want to work in film, but every profession has its problems, but Hollywood has some specific ones that are really bad for people, and you just gotta, that's why we're talking about this today, is it's not the most fun topic, but you gotta shine a light to it because there might be somebody out there that doesn't know about this. That's the unfortunate thing, is there's still people. I do this podcast and other ones so I can talk to my mom and whatnot, but if there are people that are not in Hollywood, they just know that, oh, this guy directed this X-Men movie and it's Bryan Singer, or he directed Bohemian Rhapsody. There's tons of stuff that people still miss. I still think there's tons of people that don't know about any of the Justice League drama that happened because that stuff's all happening on Twitter, and there's billions of people not on social media, right? So you gotta hold people accountable as much as you can, and I hope that he's not around much longer. I know there's been word of him directing some other movies and whatnot, but it's just it's a very broken system, and things need to change, and they are changing, but we're not there at the perfect point yet.
Yeah, and the fact that being parents ourselves at this point, hearing that underage youth were, boys were just assaulted in this is just, like I said, there is a level of sickenings that I just don't tolerate. And the fact that he continued to have this done, like you said, an imperfect system, but he continued to settle out of court and people still allowed him to have a career.
Yeah.
Allowed him to have a career. They need to be held accountable as well for allowing this to happen. I understand the legal system is the legal system as a way, but those producers, those people who saw it and knew it was going on and understood it, also need to be held accountable as well. And unfortunately, I don't think they will, but this stuff out there, I'm sorry, but you didn't shine a light on this when you could have. And people say, well, it's a different time. I'm sorry. It's wrong. It doesn't matter what time it was wrong.
Yeah, it's not right in any time. And there's always those cases where people say, oh, it was that time, but you got to go, well, there's always in that time too, there's the cases of people that stood up and talked. Even if people didn't listen to them, wouldn't you rather be one of those people that went, hey, I tried to do something instead of just sitting back and going, oh, that's the way it is? Because if everyone just goes, that's the way it is, then nothing changes. It gets us nowhere. So it is, like you said, I don't think they would see any repercussions. They'll just go on producing movies. And just even that interview, it sounds very passe to her of like, oh, yeah, that was just times it happened. But it's just like, I still feel like you don't get the amounts burden that put on some people and change their lives for the worst,
And I want to change over just a little bit because I found the quote I was looking for from this writer. The guy answering the phones that ended up having an effect on the script said Singer started taking me the script to script meetings with Peter Rice and Tom Rothman, and he would say, just sit there, take notes, don't say anything, and don't tell anyone you're writing the script, said Hader. Ralph said, and he asked me to highlight everything I had done on the script. And at that point, it was 55% of the script. And Ralph went to Peter Rice and said, look, here's the deal. David, the phone guy, he's been writing the script. You have to make a deal with him or we're going to be in some serious legal jeopardy. Peter called me into his office and offered me $35,000. Said, that's all you're going to get. Be happy with it. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Singer. It's so crazy that because I feel like it was around apocalypse time, and that's when people attack is not when you're winning, because when you're winning, you're making the studio money. So of course that's going to happen. But apocalypse time, when that kind of went down, that's when we heard a lot more, and we heard even stuff in Days of Future Past, which I could go listen to our Patreon episode. It's somewhere in my top 10. I consider that one of the best comic book movies of all time. And to hear same thing, Days of Future Past, there'd be days on set where he just disappeared or wouldn't be there, and they had to have the second unit direct. And it's just crazy that I just think, unfortunately for this guy, it seems like he had a stupid amount of luck as far as, I don't know what happens with Usual Suspects with this, X-Men working, Days of Future Past, which I think is great to know that wasn't really all him, which lots of times, of course, it's never just one man. It's not just the director, but the director's supposed to be the team captain. He's supposed to lead the ship, or she's supposed to lead the ship to the best product possible, whether it's TV or movie. So I always thought too, just to put this stuff aside, well, that's another reason why he's getting away with some of the stuff, because he's incredibly talented. But it sounds like he was also just quite a pain to work with. So it's weird how some people just weasel their way into a system, and it's quite a shame, unfortunately. So it's go ahead.
Well, to your point, how Hugh Jackman's not even referring to him by name at that point. Rami Malek, when he accepted the Oscar, didn't make any reference to him.
Oh,
whatsoever.
Yeah, of course not. No,
absolutely not at that point. And again, I'm sorry, Bryan Singer. Call me part of cancel culture. I'm sorry. You crossed the line a long time ago at that point, and I'm sorry. I hope you never come back.
No, I agree.
Your career is done in far as my eyes at that point. Again, we have people like Roman Polanski, same thing.
Yeah.
But. Anyways, any more do you got to say on this one before we head to our?
No, I would just say if you want more, read the entire article, and that gives you a depth of the whole situation. And there's even stuff to end this in a nice bow tie of some lightheartedness. There's a conversation about when Michael Jackson wanted to be Xavier, and it's just a crazy time because he also wanted to be the Riddler, and obviously that's a guy that has a troubled past as well. But it's again, we've talked about that in the lighthearted way of 2000s comic books of just even Shaquille O'Neal too was trying to get a role in X-Men. It just shows that back then. Nowadays, I feel like you'd have the team at Marvel prep some people, look, who's the best for this role. But back then, I was we'll take a meeting with Shaq. Who does he want to play? It's I don't think that's happening nowadays unless it's for a fun cameo.
I like the idea that Michael Jackson, like you said, wanted to be Professor Xavier and had this whole presentation of how it could work. Yeah, and I was like, hey, give it to the man. He wanted this role bad enough that he had ideas. So hey. Like you said, it was a little humor to start off what became a very well written article.
Oh yeah.
Some of the stuff we've known, but some of the stuff it was very much delight. And the reason obviously came about was this is 20 years to the day, 20 years for X-Men that started where we are. We can't get anywhere today without X-Men being what it did. Mm-hmm. So yeah. So our next one is I'm probably going to mispronounce his name, so I apologize. Peter Shinkoda. who played Nobu in Netflix's Daredevil, makes some serious accusations against Jeph Loeb. He had done I believe this was a podcast Zoom call looking at, hashtag Save Daredevil, and so they had him on talking about various things, going back and forth at that point. And then about 10 minutes into the interview, he goes off and he's kind of unsure if he's going to talk about what he's going to say. But he says, you know what? I'm just going to say it, just going to put out there. And he goes on to say that, his character playing Nobu was that he had received information where Jeph Loeb had told supposedly the writer's room to not write for Nobu and Gao, who was, Miss Gao in the show at that point, Madame Gao, excuse me, and reiterated many times the writer's room and the showrunners that quote unquote nobody cares about Chinese people and Asian people. There were 3 previous Marvel movies, a trilogy called Blade, where Wesley Snipes kills like 200 Asians in a movie. Nobody gives an S word about it, so don't write about Nobu and Gao, because there are apparently supposed to be this huge background story about Nobu, how he got there, his whole plan, and that kind of got hugely truncated, according to him. And the writers had said, we really want to do this, but he's our boss. He's the guy running the show. And so, he ended up also putting out another tweet saying that the actress that played Madame Gao himself weren't even at the season 2 premiere. They were seeing it going on live stream, and they're like, why weren't we given the invite? And all they were told was supposedly they were sorry, quote unquote, they were sorry that they were overlooked. And even Ray Fisher chimed in, saying our industry will not advance unless we are willing to speak on the names of those preventing it doing so. Thank you for standing up and speaking out. I stand with you. And he just said, he kind of said that I just feel like at this time I have an iota of a chance of still having a career than where I was when this was going on. And we haven't heard anything from Jeph Loeb. It's been radio silence at that point. Marvel hasn't responded at this time, from what I've seen. It's just bad. Whatever it is, and he's not one necessarily. The fact that he's just coming out now to say something along this line, if you watch the clip, he is very uncomfortable. That he's very unsure. This upsets him very much, but he's also not one to. Doesn't sound like he's trying to make something up just to get the press.
Yeah, no, I would agree, because again, you always got to say that you got to hear both sides. But unfortunately, like you said, for some reason it's not funny, but it's just ironic that him and both Joss Whedon have not said anything about their issues, and especially for me with the Joss Whedon thing, I'm a major Joss Whedon fan of his work, but when he refused to even when they asked him for a comment, he didn't even put out a comment. To me, that was, I don't know, a little telling in my opinion. That kind of wavered my kind of support as far as like, okay, I'm giving you a chance to explain yourself, and you just kind of plead the fifth. Okay, I can't really give it to you. And same with Loeb. You never know, because this is a newer issue, so something may come out. There were some other people that were writers that have worked with Loeb that came out too and said similar things, that similar experiences. It's like the Bryan Singer thing. It's like we're talking about Kevin Spacey. It's just a crappy time. It's a time that has to happen, but it is crappy as far as someone like Jeph Loeb's stature, which I love so much of that guy's work. It sucks to hear things like that. You can not want to write for a character because maybe you don't have a storyline or it's just not working. Those are all valid reasons. Just because of someone's race, that is inexcusable, and that doesn't make even good business sense, to be honest. Because I even remember season 2, which I love. Daredevil to me is next to Watchmen as far as for live action, the greatest comic book superhero shows. And I remember even in season 2, though, Nobu does just appear, and that's the thing. It's like the Ray Fisher thing. People are gonna say it's just sour grapes and whatnot, but sometimes there's more to it. And if this is the case, because I'm not gonna condemn him and say, hey, he 100% did this, I want to hear more from him. And you and I talked about that privately. Like, I want to hear Loeb's side story. He has not given us that, and Marvel's not giving us that. Network, Netflix didn't, who could somewhat be involved, right, as far as maybe looking into it. It was their product at the time. So it's a very unfortunate thing. It's a thing that if you, for any reason, whatnot, kind of agree with Loeb or that statement as far as that's a reason, a valid reason to write someone off, I would say stop listening to this show because this is not for you. We don't support any of that here.
No.
It's super disappointing. It's like I said, something has to happen, but it is disappointing almost every week to wake up to, man, this person's a complete asshole and this really sucks and they got to get what's coming to. And Jeph Loeb, if that is true, that should be looked into, or what should be looked into is because, sometimes you can't ding anybody for being just a complete jerk, but what should be looked into is what he does in the future and how that should be limited as far as him working with major studios or him having a say. If he wants to be some consultant on one of his stories or graphic novel or comedy road, fine, but as far as him being the head of something, I don't think that should happen. And even then, too, this is just complete conjecture on my part. But if you look at the past with Feige and MCU, Feige had to deal with a similar thing like Perlmutter, where he's a guy that, no one's going to say he's racist, but if you look at a lot of things he didn't want people of color getting certain movies. He didn't want women getting certain movies the way he didn't want toys being made. He had that mindset of being very exclusive to, it's just my people and that's it. I'm looking out for my own. And I'm not saying Jeph Loeb is exactly like that, but Feige, when he got that TV station, the TV production side, he shut that all down. And he's a guy that maybe would probably hear some things, and maybe it's the fact of he doesn't have the power to go out and make a big statement like Jeph Loeb is this, but he never did that like Perlmutter, right? But when we got that book with Iger, we really heard how many problems there were. So when he acquired the TV, I think there's a good chance if Feige had heard anything about this, there's a chance that he went, you know what, let's cut ties with all this because Feige's complete control of TV right now. And I think if he delegates it to anybody, I don't think it's going to be Jeph Loeb.
Well, yeah, he got shown the door at that point. So, again, they're staying silent because they think that they're protected, and if they say something, they bring more attention to it. So if it doesn't pick up traction, they think that they've gotten away with it. Sorry, guys, anyone who's a part of anything like this, your days are numbered. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, and I think because I don't expect so much Marvel or that company, Netflix, to put out a statement. They could, as far as condemning it, but I also think sometimes them not putting out a statement is almost that as well. Because if you want to support somebody, if you want to get behind them, you could put out something saying, "Hey, we've never had this claim, blah blah blah." But the fact that no one comes out and says, "Hey," like even with John Berg and Joss Whedon, first of all, terrible statement. They talked about in DC Alliance weeks ago. But two, it's just, other than John Berg, no one really came around. And that to me sometimes telling is, silence. It's the same thing with Ray Fisher and the other cast. I think one day you'll hear more from the Justice League. Sometimes people aren't in the position to talk about, but look at the Bryan Singer thing. That was 20 years later, right? This eventually will all come out, hopefully, and that's what the hope is, that it comes out sooner, in the future, that it doesn't take as long, as we can get to a place that if there's a problem, we can nip in the bud and confront it right now. But as long as it comes out, that's a good thing. So hopefully this gets dealt with in the future.
Yeah, it is, and I applaud him for having the courage to at least bring this to the forefront. So we need more of you like that out there, and we know how hard it is for those that haven't. Doesn't make you any less. We understand it. You will find your voice. We're more than confident about that. So our next story, we start shifting a little bit. We got some finally, supposedly official news, official casting. Hailee Steinfeld has I haven't heard it in a big trade yet, but the Illuminati first promoted how many things they had been right about before they got to the point, which I said, okay, I see the headline. I'm not seeing the story yet at that point. So they're, putting their credence at that point that they have their sources that have given them some positive, scoops at that point. But their scoopers have told them that she has officially signed onto the Hawkeye streaming series that's going to be on Disney Plus. And I'm glad it ended up coming through, because I remember, it was probably, I don't know if it was the end of last year or the beginning of this year, there was talks that she hadn't signed, not because of the deal being bad, but because of scheduling issues. And so it kind of got put on hold. But she supposedly, again, we have not seen Variety or Hollywood Reporter confirm this, but that she will portray Kate Bishop, who will be our quote-unquote new Hawkeye, that Jeremy Renner is also set to star in Training Kate. So
the better Hawkeye.
I love Hawkeye and Hawkeye. I love the character. I loved it when I got introduced to her in Young Avengers. and she's perfect casting for it. I mean, spitting image of Kate Bishop from the comics.
Yeah, this is one that I've wanted for a while. I am still reluctant because I still am waiting for a trade, and I'm just surprised that it hasn't happened. And I do, because we're in this weird stage right of, because you talked about Luminary, how they listed all their credits and what they got right before. So
I'm glad you picked up on that.
Yeah, like so this was something that came out, I think, a few weeks ago, maybe before you and Brent recorded, but Mark Hughes, he put out this thread about the difference kind of between online bloggers, scoopers, and trades, right? And there's tons of stuff that is very valid in there, because there's just tons of people out there that are just, oh, we got this covered, right? People that are just putting out any information that's even talked about. Me and Chris may talk about, hey, we're going to do this episode, but we never do it. But if Greg runs, will be like, oh, they're talking about doing this type of episode. Yeah, that's not a rumor. That's just me and something Chris had in passing conversation. So if someone was like, hey, maybe we should put Hulk in this movie, and then they go, oh yeah, maybe, but we'll talk about it, and then someone goes to report, it's like Hulk to appear in Ant-Man, so it's like, I get that, but then there is people out there that are honest and trying to do the scoop game, and lots of these people, like someone like an Humberto Gonzalez, who, if you look at his track record, had tons of stuff that was wrong, but now he's someone that broke the Keaton Batman thing. If that gets confirmed, that's a massive thing, and now he works for a trade. So these people have to start somewhere, and that's where it's tough, right? You have to differentiate between who you can trust and who you can't. So I believe them that their sources have told them this. I don't think they are falsely reporting that. If it actually happens, I want it to, because your pun of the day, it's pitch perfect casting. Hailee Steinfeld is a phenomenal actress. She's a star on the rise. I loved when there were these scheduling conflicts, because the scheduling conflict was she's doing that Apple Plus show Dixon or something like that. And I just thought, man, you must be kicking yourself if you like an Apple Plus. I loved defending Jacob earlier this year, but it's like, you must be kicking yourself if you just sign on in a few seasons and then Marvel's like, hey, you want to be MCU? You want to be the new Hawkeye, who I think will go in the films? And like,
I got Apple money. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but even then, it's just like, you still, and to me, she's Spider-Gwen, right? She's the only Spider-Gwen we have as far as a voice and whatnot on film. So to me,
she was the voice.
Yeah, she's a fan of this stuff. So to me, if I was a fan of this stuff acting, I'd be happy to get that Apple money, but I'd be willing to take the pay cut if I could get this contract to go over, especially the MCU, which has been thriving before COVID. So I want it to happen. I think it will. I trust these guys, but you never know in Hollywood, because again, at one point, even someone's like I don't want to say which one, but one of the trades, Deadline, Hollywood Reporter, they had originally reported that Alec Baldwin was playing Thomas Wayne. Remember that back in the day with Joker? And then a few days later, Alec Baldwin tweeted this was not true, and things fell apart. The same thing as Nicholas Hoult. He was in final negotiations for the Batman, and that didn't happen. So even things can still happen. So I will still wait, but I'm excited for the prospect. I'm a big fan of Hawkeye. I've said this on Twitter that I think Hawkeye is in the most interesting place he's ever been, next to Moon Knight, because my Moon Knight bias is coming in. He's the show I can't wait to see the most, because you got a few things going on. One, it looks like they're kind of doing some adaptation of the Matt Fraction run, which is all over media. As far as earlier this week, we saw Hawkeye introduced in the Avengers game, which is really exciting. But it's been shown that he is deaf in the game. He has one of the costumes is that. I can't remember the dog. What is his dog in that run? I can't remember, but there's a dog barking in that teaser. So that run has been very influential on Hawkeye. So I think this show is going to tackle that. It's going to tackle some Ronin stuff. It's going to tackle Kate Bishop. And I think it's going to be a good send-off for Jeremy Renner. I actually don't think they'll kill him off. I think they're just going to put him in a sense of, he's with his family. He's happy. He's going to retire.
He finally gets to retire officially.
Yeah, and he can work. Yeah, he can work on that house and the shed or whatever, and that's what I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a great send off, and I think Renner. It's funny because he's very divided as far as casting. I see some people that absolutely do not like that casting. I'm somebody that I really enjoy it. I think the Hawkeye character is not exactly the one I know and love from the comic books. The nice purple horn, very quippy, very almost sometimes like Flash, like when Flash is quippy. But I think.
Oh, you must be you're going way pre House of M at that point for quippiness. He hasn't been House of M quippy. He hasn't been quippy since
100%. But there's been adaptations where, like in the latest before they reboot it for the animation, the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Hero, where he was that Hawkeye, where he was just the sitting around.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the thing where I think there's still people, there is that House of Foundation, and that's where I feel like since the Matt Fraction run, that started to take over as everyone's Hawkeye. But I think at the time in 2012 when Hawkeye was in that sort of mind, everyone still had, especially me, had that Hawkeye in mind, that classic one, and wanted to see that. So I don't think people's problems, and some people might not like Renner, that's fine. I think lots of people's problems stem from it's not my version of Hawkeye that I like, but I still think they do enough of that type of Hawkeye in these movies, especially Age of Ultron. They give him some great moments. So I'm a big fan of Renner. I can't wait for the show. And if this is true, my excitement just gets even better. And there's been rumors of like Clown as far as one of the villains in here. So I think this is gonna low key really surprise people as far as how good it is. And I think people are gonna really love Renner when he's on his way out.
You don't know what you have until he's gone.
Exactly,
so,
yeah.
But I'll be excited to see that. I mean, hasn't even started production yet, but I hope we get an official confirmation soon because, like I said, I really like Hailee Steinfeld as this part. I think she's going to be great. She's been great in everything I've seen her in and heard her in.
And I was going to ask you for the game. Are you excited for Hawkeye to be one of the playable ones?
I mean, this month I'm going to be getting through Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah.
That is the goal, to get through Ghost of Tsushima this month so that I can start playing Avengers next month. I gave myself a 2-week break after Last of Us 2 to kind of recharge after being so depressed as that game. But yeah, I'm excited. It's an Avengers game. I'm glad to see, and I saw the teaser before I got to watch their new War Room presentation about it. I mean, graphically, it's great. I have a decision to make of which system I'm going to get it on at this point. So,
what do you mean by that?
I've got an Xbox and a PlayStation, so I've got to figure out which one I'm going to be getting it for, and so we'll have to see. I haven't heard any kind of exclusives for one or the other, but it's one of those situations where it's Avengers. It didn't. They kind of stumbled out of the gate at that point. They're slowly earning back my trust that this is a game I'm excited about. So, I like the idea, like you had brought up to me earlier this week, that the DLC, all DLC is going to be free.
Yeah.
So Hawkeye is going to be free. They hinted at 4 or 5 more characters being introduced, playable characters. So
they said 3. They said 3 specifically. And for the listeners, if you didn't see in this War Room, people are trying to theorize when they unveiled the list that they had like all the logos of the characters already unlocked, and then there's Hawkeye's. But in between Thor, who's a playable character, and Hawkeye, there was one that was unknown. So some people are speculating that third character might even unlock when you finish the game. So there's some people speculating that. And I've been trying to die on this hill since the game revealed. I still think it's Ant-Man. I still think they introduced him. I think he's there. And the other thing I will say, as far as people getting excited, I think a Spider-Man character, whether it's him or Miles Morales, will be, because if you go way back to the first E3 reveal when they talked about Hawkeye, they talked about in some interview in Hawkeye and Spider-Man, they both hinted at, they're like, everyone's asking about Hawkeye, everyone's asked about Spider-Man, they're like, just you wait. So the fact that they said just you wait and we got a Hawkeye reveal, I think a Spider character is in the future as well. So that's just speculation, but I'm just giving you some potential nugget in the future, as I just have to watch all these interviews and go, okay, I've seen a little trail of breadcrumbs there. So
yeah, this is our kind of first major game of, even though it's going to be September, the holiday season does start with gaming at that point around August, September. So this is our first major release. So, and I think the next one after that, when does Cyberpunk come out?
Hopefully November.
November. So
yeah.
I think I don't know what the big release in October is going to be at this point, but I know, yes, welcome to the gaming show of Marvel Alliance at that point.
Well, yeah, and the other thing that comes out this fall that is this is just a rumor, so I'm not going to say this up, but there is a rumor going around that one we know for sure this fall we're getting Miles Morales, but there's also a rumor going around that it might come with a remastered Spider-Man game, so that could be your big October kind of purchase and whatnot.
Yeah.
So
definitely around time for new console launch at that point. But yeah, I think I don't know off the top of my head anything bigger in September outside of Marvel's Avengers. So they have a month, and I think that's going to be very telling if it gets. It's got to get some positive reviews out of the gate, because everyone still remembers what happened with their earlier premiere. So they have to win over people very fast, or else we might not get the DLCs we're looking for at that point. We know we have Hawkeye, but I think a lot of those other ones, possible fan favorites, might stem from how it's received. If it's not received well, we might not get much.
Yeah, so. And I think they've been doing a good job as far as turning the tide. So I hope for the best.
I agree. Yep, exactly. All right, so we got two more news stories. We got a story coming out of IGN, Thor: Love and Thunder to start shooting at the beginning of next year. Appearing on a recent Instagram Live with tennis icon Serena Williams, Natalie Portman shared her excitement over the reprisal of her Thor character, astrophysicist Jane Foster, who will also be wielding the hammer as the mighty Thor. We're going to emphasize that mighty Thor. Let's stop this whole thing of Lady Thor, despite what Nathan wants to continue to promote. And so she had said that, quote, "We haven't started filming yet," she explained. More time for me to get jacked, which I have not. I've been carbo loading down, but not the exercise part. I'm super excited. We're shooting in Australia at the beginning of next year, I think. Obviously, everything is weird because of the pandemic, and who knows what's happening, but the plan is for all of us to go starting at the beginning of next year. So, and you had shot me this just a little bit before recording that, speaking of Australia, the local TV station had they had,
a scoop.
I don't know, a scoop at that point. Local TV station had, I guess, their traffic topper 10 hovering over the building of the set of Shang-Chi, the Legend of the Ten Rings. They are continuing the building of the sets down there. They had said that the cast has already made it to Australia. They're in the middle of their required quarantine, before they can officially start filming again, which should be happening fairly soon. So it was just wild when you sent that. I just saw that, and it was like, it's a Australian local news. It's like, all right. But yeah, I mean, we're starting to hopefully get back into filming, and as long as they're all doing it safe, I'm looking forward to, hopefully, maybe next year, guys, we'll get some Marvel.
Yeah, I just don't know how to feel about any of this, because I think it's very wishful thinking for all of them. Shang-Chi, the reason I show you that, because I thought, one, it was just cool to see that. I liked just the actual look of all these sets that are going on. It was fun. Like, they actually had sets built, but then they had like a huge CGI wall around it too. So that was fun. So you could film these movies, but I feel like it could end up like, and I guess that's fine, I guess they gotta be doing something, right? But I just feel like it's gonna end up like Black Widow, where Black Widow's done, has been ready to release, but the problem is, it's not that the filming hasn't happened, it's just it can't be released. And that's my thing of Shang-Chi and Thor, which my prediction is it won't shoot next year, or like the beginning of next year, because I just feel like, what's the point of shooting at the beginning of next year when you can't release it? That's why we talked about a few weeks ago that I feel like it's going to move over to Disney Plus, not those movies, but just the idea of what do we shoot right now, because so far, I guess we're in this new world, right? And it's going to be so funny if our kids ever want to listen to this back, and especially from the beginning of this podcast, now like every week COVID and the things change. So you could get like with podcasts, these live, like personal, how things were going. And I guess the big tester will be to see what happens with Tenet, because Tenet, as of right now, is planned to, it's going to release in a bunch of countries at the end of August, and then in America and some select cities the long weekend there. What long weekend do you guys have in September there? What's the holiday?
Labor Day.
Yeah, Labor Day. Yeah. So if this goes well, quotations, because it's never going to go as well as you would hope to be in this situation and what it would have released. But as far as just the getting it out there, that's the test of as far as what does Hollywood do next. Because yeah, these other movies can release, these independent movies, but those like, I'm happy Abe is in my theater, but no one's talking about Abe, and that's not changing Hollywood because it's just an independent film. That's no disrespect to that, but I'm just talking about in the grand scheme of these big blockbusters. I think what happens next is whatever happens with Tenet dictates the future. Shang-Chi, that's great that they're filming. I understand that because they were more in pre-production. I think Taika last week said he had finished the script, because you guys talk about being a rom-com. So they're still in pre-production too, but they're not in the stage of Shang-Chi was starting to scout locations and build sets and everything like that. I think with Thor, because it hasn't exactly done that, and they're just doing ideas, concept, probably costumes, her working out, stuff like that, they could hold off on that. So I don't think it will. I would love it too, because that means the world is getting back to normal, but I don't think it will shoot. Maybe it will shoot next year, but I don't think early next year. But who knows? That's still so many months away. And we've had 8 months of this year, and it's been a very strange 8 months. So who knows what the next 8 months is going to hold?
Yep. We'll see. We'll see. So I said, yes, I do know Black Widow is still slated for release. I still stick to my statement. See you next year, Marvel.
I agree with you.
I'll be and yes, New Mutants too.
Oh,
I'll see
really?
you next year, Marvel.
Yeah. That's
Yep. So I will be very happily proved wrong, but hatefully, I don't think my heart wants to be proven wrong. My head is getting in the way of that right now. So, but all right, last story we have is hey, speaking of New Mutants director reveals X-Men Apocalypse failure changed his movie and plans for the Storm. First, need to ask you this: what did you think about that new trailer?
I did not watch it because we were not covering on Geek First or this, because if my rule always is, if I don't cover it, I try not to watch it so I can go on like a little blind. So I luckily.
All right, that is your homework assignment then, my friend.
Okay, I will watch it, and I can get back to you next week and whatnot. Yep. So I've heard great things about it as far as the vibe and the look. So I've always, that's one thing though, like you and Brent talked about how you weren't excited about that first trailer. I've always been super excited. So I've been sold on New Mutants day one when I was 6 years old, but here we are and I'm 26 now and it still hasn't come out. So
yeah, I mean, both of us said like initially, yes, we weren't excited, but each trailer has, and this one definitely, I can't wait to see this. And but yeah, so he spoke to Slash Film and gave some tidbits about how X-Men, the reaction and the reception of X-Men Apocalypse kind of changed his movie. He said they really did want it to be different than the other stuff. They really pushed for us to keep it separate from X-Men stuff, even though it's set in the X-Men universe. We had some early drafts where they were supposed to be in the same timeline as X-Men Apocalypse, so it actually originally was supposed to be set in the 80s. Professor X and Storm were set to be in it, and Storm was supposed to be very much playing the Alice Bragg role, who's the Doctor, in the current iteration of New Mutants. And over the course of a month, new studio head came in. They said they didn't want any X-Men movies to take place in the past anymore, as if that was the reason Apocalypse was bad.
Oh, 100%. That was my main complaint was that it was in the time period, and that's why it was awful.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I love it that the whole movie is so self-aware. So we were put in a position where we kind of had to rewrite a lot of stuff to be set in a nebulous point in time, because nobody knew how the movies had turned out. Dark Phoenix wasn't out yet, so yeah, it's there. They talk about Professor X and these things, but it doesn't. No one has cameos or anything like that. So, more sad news about New Mutants and what could have been.
Yeah, I think this is the tale of three stories. This story is one, this shows that we've heard this many times. If you look at Justice League to BVS or BVS to Suicide Squad to Justice League, how a reception of one film can change everything, right? And studios can just go wild with what they want to change. This was a situation, again, laughable that that's the reason. Like, oh, it was the time period. I think it was maybe the poor script and some of the poor choices and, some of the retreads of storylines we've done. But no.
And I don't actually, I mean, it's not obviously one of my favorite X-Men movies, but I don't outright despise that movie like some people do.
Yeah, I'm with you. I actually enjoy, there's some good parts in that movie, so I do enjoy, there's some good performances, specifically Magneto's storyline, really well done. So one, as far as it shows studios changed everything. Two, I think in the long run, this is actually better for it because it gets to be its own little standalone thing. And obviously, this might be the end of this universe, probably will be. So I think in that way, it could be just a good, this is a good X-Men movie that came out at one point, if it is good. So I'm hoping. And three, I think to get ahead of this is good because we had heard there's tons of rumors throughout the year, especially with this one just shading for so long. I think it's good to go, hey, we talk about some things, but there's no cameos. Don't expect any big characters. So there's nobody that some people might go, oh, like that's spoiling the surprise. But to me, it's good because it's like, again, it's setting up that this is a unique one-off, like almost like an Elseworlds tale. Don't think it's connected to anything. Don't expect Patrick Stewart. Don't expect Hugh Jackman. Don't expect Storm. I think it sets expectations well. So I liked this whole interview. And again, it was interesting just seeing how one film can change another, So it's I really hope we get to see it. I'm with you that I don't know if we're going to see it in August. I still think New Mutants we could see this year because I think Disney or / Marvel would be willing to use that as a tester one to put out there, like a tenant to be like, oh, we'll sporadically release it because I don't think this is not setting up the rest of the universe. This isn't Black Widow. So I think there's a chance we could still see it this year, but in August, I don't know. If we get in August, then somehow we're getting Tenet and New Mutants the same week, which would be a very strange week.
as they said at the end, at the beginning of the trailer, or excuse me, the beginning of the panel, August 28th. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, so that's all we got for news. I'm enjoying that we keep on finding these little longer news segments at that point. So, but yeah, some interesting things. So, but yeah, do you want to head to an ad break?
Yeah, we'll throw to one more, and then we'll be back with some fact or fiction. So as we said before, everything's the same as this ad break. So just listen to that, and we'll be right back. Okay, so we're back. We got some fact or fiction going on right now. So I'm gonna pull up the results. I thank Brent because he had some really good ones. He had, like I said, Bagman was not. I out of left field. Was not expecting that, but it was a joy to hear. But I will start with this one just because I have the results of this one.
Yep.
I'll go with Brent's first, and then I'll go with D.H. Hansley's after. In the MCU, the Fantastic Four will be time displaced, a.k.a. Captain America or Captain Marvel, kind of that situation. 67% went fiction, 33% went fact. I would have went fiction because I think in early, like if they had Fantastic Four earlier, then maybe, but I think like kind of Brent was talking about, we did with Captain America, we've done it, we're doing it with Captain Marvel a little bit. I just think it would be too similar. I'm not saying I'm a whole like 100% fiction, but I lean that way just because we've seen it very recently, so I don't know if they want to do that again.
Yeah, I think I was fiction on that. It's been a week, so it's hard for me to remember.
And then let's see here. So D.H. Hansley's, I'm pulling her on because for some reason I have the results of that one, but they're here. Okay, here we go. Now I can go back to Brent. So his second one was his first one technically, but the second one I have the pull. Spider-Man will one day don the Bagman look in the MCU film. So obviously that would be kind of you'd have to get Fantastic Four in there.
No, you don't have to.
You don't have to. I guess you don't have to. You could just put the bag on him, right? You don't need the actual suit or anything. So that's true. I did go fact because I just think there could be, like he talked about an end credit, like you talked about an Easter egg. I think, hey, we even got, this is a bigger deal to get, but we got the wings in Spider-Man Far From Home, right? So I think there could be some joke where he loses his suit, especially this third one. There's rumors that, who knows now, but there's been rumors that it might be like a Spider-Man on the run sort of situation. So if that's a situation, maybe he needs a bit. I don't know why he needs to conceal his identity, but maybe it's just so people don't know that's Peter Parker. I don't know, but I think you could see in the future. So I went fact, but yeah, it was fiction 70% and 30% for the fans for fact.
Oh, come on!
Yeah.
I'm totally fact on this. It's it is so an easy shoehorn Easter egg. Like I said, it doesn't have to be Fantastic Four. I'm not going to give it that, but put in the bag over the head. His costume gets lost or whatever. Put a bag over his head. There we go. Amazing bag, bang, boom.
Yeah. So that was that.
Marvel. My rates are cheap.
So this one had an overwhelming percentage. Deadpool, if he is in the MCU, Josh Brolin will play Cable again, and there will be a joke made by a character that he looks oddly familiar, obviously alluding to the fact that he is Thanos and Cable, which is a pretty good gig. 90% went fact, 10% went fiction. So here I went fiction because not the Deadpool in the MCU part. I just think even if Deadpool gets into the MCU, I don't think they would have. If you're saying if it's Deadpool, Brolin, and there's a joke, then yeah, for sure. But I'm saying, to me, I kind of, when he posed the question as kind of, he said there was two parts to it. My thing is, I don't think they would bring back Josh Brolin for Cable because, one, I think they would wait a little bit for Cable. I don't think if they're trying to make Scott Summers a new main character, I don't think they want to introduce his son from the future.
Oh, come on. So
I think they want to wait a little bit. So I think by the time they got to Cable, Josh Brolin might be out of it. And I still think Thanos will return one day, whether it's in a prequel or, again, we learned in Endgame, the people that were snapped did not die. All it takes is Doom to get that glove, and I want to work with the Thanos. And then all it takes is Boo. I know that actually sounds more like Red Skull. I don't know what the people of Latveria talk about, so
yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Once we go to Latveria, I'll get to see their accent. But I went fiction because I just don't think Brolin would be brought back, in my opinion.
I think I was fact on this one just because I could see. So we were trying to figure out like which character, if it wasn't Deadpool, would do it. I can't remember what I said, but I want to. It's kind of a fun thing to think about.
Oh yeah,
so.
I wish it, because I really liked his Cable, and I was really excited to get an X-Force movie down the line, and I'm just really excited to just hear any news. Did you see that Ryan Reynolds video he posted a few days ago of the Unsolved Mysteries spoof with Deadpool as far as who leaked it? Oh
No,
yeah, so like
I didn't.
Unsolved Mysteries, I'm not sure if you saw in the past or like the Netflix one, but they kind of have these really creepy opening credits.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So he did that, but he used Deadpool footage and he used like clip outs like who leaked the footage and it was like Unsolved Mysteries. And then he said this is why the third film's taking so long to get made, which I just want to know. I just even want Feige to either come out and say it's not happening or it's happening, or even it's happening but it's not in the MCU. I just want to know because it's been what I guess it's not been that long. It's been only like
Again, it's the Stephen Colbert. Give it to me now.
well, yeah, just news so I know it's happening, but we don't. But yeah, so those were Brent. So Brent, thank you for stepping in. That was lots of fun to hear someone else get those. And then finally, Dia Chancey. She's been a big fan of Geekverse for a long time. Go check out her and her music. She's doing some great stuff. She said the first MCU LGBTQ relationship will be featured in a Disney Plus show before a film. Like you alluded last week, she said maybe because they'd be scared. I went fact on this one because I know Brent brought up that Eternals is happening, but one, they said that there would be characters. The way I took her question is a relationship. To me, that means we're seeing a man or a woman. We're seeing them kiss. We're seeing sex alluded to. We're seeing them in actual dating, living together.
Whoa, let's go.
Well, yeah, I'm not
All
saying
right.
we're seeing like the scenes of that, but I'm saying like it has to be heavily in it, and they just said there would be a character, so that character could not be in a relationship. It could just be that character. And she pointed out when this poll went public to the public, a listener put, "Oh well, Valkyrie, they already have her," but she said, "Yeah, but they cut those scenes, and they had said before Thor Ragnarok came out that we have this first character represent this community in Thor, and then that got cut out, which I never understood because the scene is just her getting out of bed with a woman. It's not even that explicit. It's just it shows that she's a bisexual character, they've said. So I don't
What does it matter? That's what I don't understand. It's just like, why are they so afraid of this?
Well, because of the markets. That's the same reason with Star Wars, unfortunately, with Episode 9. The reason that scene of the two women kissing is like that just kind of quickly is because in some markets it's cut and they can put it somewhere and that film is not banned. Because unfortunately, in my opinion, sorry to say, some countries are very behind the times and just awful.
Yes.
And that's the thing where they could put that movie in that country and take that scene out and it can still make money, where if that scene was in that movie it would not be allowed to play there. So that's the reason. That's the main thing. And that's where one
I know,
and
sorry, I know I'm echoing what you're saying. It's so dumb.
Oh yeah, that's where you got to take a stand of when they say, "Hey, we're not going to play your movie." Then you take a stand. Well, you don't get my movie, and then every studio does that. Like that's what you got to do, and eventually those people would buckle, just like everything else. People are buckling. So I wouldn't fact just because I do think there's chance in. We don't even know because people right away jump to Winter Soldier and Falcon are next. They're not gay characters, but there could be characters in that show that are, or whatever in WandaVision. We don't know. So I always think about the side characters. We don't know their situation. So I did go fact as far as a Disney Plus full on. These two are dating. They're kissing. They're holding hands. It is right in your face that this is a gay couple. I wouldn't fact just because I still think the movies they might be a little scared. I hope not. I hope Eternals has that. I hope Black Widow has that. I hope not for the sake of it, just because I just think that represents a lot of people in the world, and we've had 23 movies, and none of those have been represented yet.
Yeah, and I know exactly her point is like, well, we'll see. You're right. I totally agree with that. We'll see. We've been told one thing and proven before. I mean, for crying out loud, in Endgame, they're saying the first Marvel character, I think it was one of the Russo brothers, in the that scene was talking about going out for the first time is like, I'm the first Marvel character. It's like, really?
It's
all
like
right.
You are, and I like that scene.
All
but...
right, check. You get the participation trophy on that one. All right, now let's get a legit. Let's fully go in with Valkyrie. Fully go in with who the Eternals character is going to be. I'm with you. Let's celebrate this. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It is what it is. At that point, people love each other in different ways. Love is love. Let's go for it.
Yeah, there is millions of people around the world that have that sexual orientation, that support these movies, that watch these movies, that want to be represented, that want to see themselves on the screen, much like we heard many stories when Black Panther happened. And of course there was Blade and other heroes like that, but to get a black superhero on that scope meant something to a lot of people. I just remember seeing all those videos of those schools of black communities and whatnot, like how excited they were, and they did these big theaters and whatnot. Like, you can have that because there's so many groups of people that have just been pushed aside. So yeah, that was a good question, and I think you and I are both in the camp that we hope it happens sooner than later, and keep going. Don't just like Brent said last week. Don't just be like, well, look what we've done. We're good now. Nope, you keep going. You know, like
Nope.
you got to keep pushing. So. So I was talking about this earlier. I didn't even mean to do this, but I have a really Spider-Man centric fact or fiction. Just kind of, so
right.
I'll start with the non-Spider-Man one. Nick Fury, who I was talking about earlier, he will survive Phase 4 and Phase 5.
So Nick Fury will survive Phase 4 and Phase 5. Well, sure. I could. I mean, I have no reason to doubt that. You know, yeah, we haven't gone the whole life model decoy yet with him necessarily outside of
No.
Shield.
Don't do this. I do not. No. I do not want the life model decoy. If we get to like, I would like the same thing as Bagman, a joke like we could do this to you, Nick, but I do not actually want that. An evil Nick Fury cyborg. Oh no, please no.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't heard any new contract with him necessarily. I mean, we did get him quote unquote in Far From Home, and really wasn't him until the end. So I could see him. I like if we're gonna have constant people going in and out. I'm cool with him being the one constant that has been there at that point. So yeah, I could definitely I go fact on that.
You make great points, and I think you're probably right. But I'm gonna go fiction because I think Captain Marvel 2, because they are good friends, is going to be his big send-off because him and Captain Marvel are friends. You have that emotional relationship. And I do think, like I was saying earlier, I think they missed a chance at, I would like him to be the constant, but there's just times where Nick Fury just disappears for a while, and we know it's because, they haven't talked about a contract, so we can't get Sam Jackson here. I don't want that to ever happen again. I either want to be committed of pay the man his money because he's a phenomenal actor, so pay him his money and have him always involved, or give him a big send off and finally have, like, Maria Hill is one of the most underutilized characters in the MCU. So I think you could legitimately see a movie, Captain Marvel 2, a version where he makes some big sacrifice or he loses his life. Like I said, Captain Marvel, Carrie Danvers, they were friends, so you could have that connection, and Maria Hill steps up.
He gets an infection by being scratched on his arm by the cat
instead
of the eye this time.
I don't know what I want more or less.
I'm sorry, too soon?
Yeah, I don't know what I want less. Another cat scratch or the cyborg Nick Fury? I'd probably take the cyborg Nick Fury because the cat scratch, honestly, I didn't hate it when I first saw it, but as it's gone on, I've gone, man, that was not the right call. That was one they should have walked back.
To them it probably was really funny in the writers' room, and then they said, "Oh gosh, yeah, no."
They should have just done that as the joke, and then his eye healed, but no, it didn't happen. So yeah, I will say we're different on this one. So fans, let us know when we get to that. Scorpion will be in costume to the sequel from Far From Home. So Spider-Man 3, obviously, Matt Gorgon was set up in the first one. The actor's kind of had some fun where he tweets like the emoji of a scorpion. But will he be, and I'm not saying it has to be comic accurate, but even like the way Shocker was in Far From Home, where it's like, okay, he has these gloves and he's Shocker. Will that happen in the Spider-Man 3?
If he's in it, yes.
Well, that's the fun. We don't know if he's in it, so that's where.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. If he's in it, then yes, okay. I would say he's going to have some sort of. It's kind of hard to have. I mean, yeah, sure, you can do something, but it's kind of in my mind, it's really hard to say. You kind of have to have that kind of scorpion tail going on there, bud. So you're going to be in some sort of, mechanical cybernetic suit of some sort. At that point. So I say fact.
I'll say fact as well, because I do think he's going to be in it. And I think he could even be the way Shocker was or whatnot as a side villain. I don't even know, because we've heard tons of rumors, but we've not, like, that's what really disappointed me, because Spider-Man was obviously, because COVID, not filming anymore it was September. But I just want to know, because they've been very quiet about where that story is going for obvious reasons, because the big cliffhanger, but they've been very quiet as far as casting and as far as the villain. So I really am intrigued to see who it is. I think Scorpion will be in it one way or another, and I think you'll get the suit. Yeah, I don't want the the Max Dillon from the James Cameron situation. I don't want him just being called Scorpion and he's not a Scorpion, and that's one of my favorite costumes as far as comic book villains going. I love the look of it. There's been so many cool versions when you look at the comic books or the animated show back in the 90s, or even Miles Spider-Verse just now, when they had that cool like rock aesthetic. I'm not the biggest fan of that, but I just love that he has all these different looks. So I think it will happen. So my last one, again, like I said, Nick Fury wasn't far from a little Spider-Man centric. Didn't mean it to, but maybe Brent left something over when he left. You know, he left something in the stream. A Sony Marvel character will appear in the MCU. So that is someone from the Venomverse, the Morbiusverse, any of those films. And I'm not saying it has to be one of those main characters, but someone from that universe will appear in the MCU at any point. No cap on this.
If the deal continues.
Yeah, if the deal continues. Yeah, of course. Like, let's say it's like they keep. Yeah,
that's the caveat. Because
yeah,
saying it doesn't continue. Yeah, that ain't happening.
They break a bunch of law. They're just like, we're doing Venom. We don't care. You can sue us. No, yeah, of course. The deal continues. Whether it's kind of like Brent talked about last week, where someone buys them and then reverts right back, or the deal continues. Will you see a Spunkink or whatever the stupid name is, Spunk or whatever? What?
No, we don't. No, we don't talk about that.
So whatever that universe is,
Spider-Man character.
Yeah, Spider-Man character. Yeah.
Yes. If the deal continues, we will finally see. You know, I would love. My hope is Venom. My hope is Venom. We'll get him at that point. But yes, I say fact. If the deal continues, they're gonna. It's going to get rather laughable that we're gonna continue this idea that they're in the universe. Are they really outside of Spider-Man? Are they really? You know, so I say fact on that one. I think that's something they're gonna have to find some way to make it happen, because like I said, it becomes laughable with the third contract and all we have is Tom Holland while Sony plays with their toys in the sand.
I will say fiction again. I'll go on the other side because I don't think Kevin Feige wants this to happen at all. And I always get that flashback of that interview when she was like, oh, yeah, Amy Pascal's like, yeah, they're part of the MC. They're all together. And you just see Feige just sitting there and just like, no, this is not what I want. I do think, because Brent brought this up, I do think there's a chance in the next 5 years that film studio does get bought up. And I think when it does, you will get the Netflix route. Obviously, it's not confirmed, but we're all just assuming right now that Marvel MCU is going to take those Netflix characters and reboot them, recast them, and bring them their own. And those were characters that were also in universe, right? When those shows started, this is a part of the MCU. It really wasn't. Even Kevin Feige, this was the time point when they cast when they cast Mahershala Ali as Blade, and he did a bunch of interviews after Comic-Con. Some interviewer who really knows nothing, they're just like, does this tie to, Luke Cage? Like, he had a role there. So then Kevin Feige's like, no, different universes. And when he said that, it's some sort of quote like that, that's where I went, okay, whatever he doesn't create, he doesn't want. So I still think they'd rather send Spider-Man off. I think they've gotten there's so much more they could do with Spider-Man, but I think if this is the end with the next film and a next crossover movie, I think after the Iron Man relationship, everything they've done, they're getting 3 films. I think they could wipe their hands clean and go, you know what? We've had our time. Hopefully someone buys Sony. When they do, we'll bring Tom Holland back. But right now, we got Fantastic Four. We got X-Men. We got Eternals. We got Shang-Chi. We got so much more we can play with. See you later. So I'm gonna go fiction, and maybe that's just because me wanting it. Because if I see Jared Leto's Morbius pop up, oh boy, that opens up a can of worms.
Yeah, I'm gonna continue disagreeing with that, saying Spider-Man next to Batman, Superman is the biggest cash cow for Marvel. So I don't see them parting ways like that. But again, we'll see. We'll see.
So yeah, before we get to Comic Book Club, all those polls will go out. We're going to take our last ad break as we have the past other times. So enjoy this, support the network, and we'll be right back with Comic Book Club. All right, Chris, we're back. We're at a big one today.
Yes, the end of our Civil War, Civil War number 7 at that point, and I tweeted out from the show's Twitter page of I couldn't believe, I totally forgot to even bring this up with number 1, but that Michael Turner number 1 variant cover, it's still one of my favorites of all time. I'm so happy I own that.
My favorite is how big Wolverine is on the cover of it and how little he's in the story. Like, it is so funny because at the end it's like, we got to sell these comic books, but it's like he is in under 10 panels in this whole, like in this 7. So it is, so I love like marketing and comic books and stuff like that. I remember there's so many posters when, like, especially Ultimate Spider-Man was really not bad for that, but they would show the villain of the issue and he appears in like the last panel and you're like, oh, this is not really about Kraven the Hunter, is it? It's just, oh, he appears here. Great.
Kind of like some CW crossovers.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, so no, yeah, issue 7, we bring this as a final issue of a civil war between the heroes. It is a all out brawl at that
Yeah.
point with all sides. I mean, you just get so many different just cool moments, cool fights. What if you had to pick one moment from the book, from the big fight, what would be your favorite moment?
It's a little moment, but I think it's Bishop that said, because Cap says Avengers assemble, and isn't it Bishop that says, isn't that our line, like, aren't we the Avengers? I think it's yeah. So he says that, and then you cut to the next panel, and Cap has just curb stomped him to the cement. And to me, it's a little moment, but that showed that, and he says that later on in the fight of now I'm playing dirty. That's exactly what it showed. We talked about the stakes. We talked about the buildup. We talked about how Cap's team was starting to be tricky, but that showed no, they're literally not here for blood, but they're here as close as it is to killing someone. They're gonna go that line, and I just loved it because it also just was so brutal as far as seeing Cap do that. So that was my favorite moment of the fight. How about you?
Yeah, going back, like, I'm looking at Bishop through post Messiah and everything like that. Ever since then, I'm not a Bishop fan. Sorry. Yeah. Ever since post Messiah war and everything like that, I got probably at the time I was like, oh no, not Bishop.
Now you're like, yeah.
Anymore. I was like, yeah,
get him.
But at that point, just because I just disagree with his whole motivation in Messiah. So my favorite moment had to have been Hercules when he goes, how darest thou wear the flesh of Odin's son? I knew Thor. Thor was a friend of mine, and you are something. You are you know something. Imposter smashes him picking up the hammer of Thor. Thou art no Thor. That was just so cool.
Yeah, and just like the visual of like Thor's brain split open, but it's like a robot mechanic, like just that panel of Mjolnir, Hercules, and the cyborg Thor. Yeah, that was a great moment. I think that was a moment too when I was reading that, because I've still not read that much of Hercules, but this always kind of stands out as my Hercules moment. Of when I think of Hercules, I go, okay, we talked about a few episodes ago that we're not dying for him to get in the MCU, but if he gets in there, there's the moments I can gleam on and go, you know what, I can see the character working at some point.
Yeah, so, but I mean, there's so many. I mean, you got Cloak trying to take all the heroes out of the raft at that point. And then Wonder Man being Wonder Man jerk. This is for that.
Yeah, you ruined our plan. And I just love, like, because you could see there's many moments in this you could see in it. That's why I just think the MCU tackles it so well, because there's a few moments like that when Tony Stark goes, that better not be Cloak. And then the next panel switches and it's Cloak, and he's just like wrapping them around. And it's like, oh no. I love the next panel too, where it's him in the city and he releases them all. And you just see all these heroes in the distance, their shadows like falling. So good. And the other comedic beat I really liked is when Spider-Man was like jumping to all the heroes and villains, like punching them, kicking, and Reed is like, amazing, and he's like, no, spectacular, and he just hits Reed with a roundhouse kick, and that just feels like a movie. That feels exactly like that Civil War airport scene of just, again, they are friends, so they're not trying to kill each other, but they are going for it, and it's just, there's just such not every character, but every moment feels very well thought out and kind of calls back to something else. And the fight, very well done. And just even from the trickery of it, you get to see multiple people get their moments. So it lived up to its hype as far as I didn't even see my overall. I love this issue as far as the finale. We're going to cover some kind of 2 ones after this to kind of wrap it up. But as far as the finale to the pinnacle of the battle, I think it delivered on all fronts.
Yeah, there's another cool kind of moment where Lady Deathstrike is they're all the villains are beating the crud out of Steve, and she goes, what's so funny, Captain? You like our little jokes? You share Bullseye's sense of humor? He says no. I'm just thinking about my pal up there kicking your butts into next week, and Namor has chosen his side. And remember, his big thing was, I'm not going to negotiate with you, Sue. If my friend wants me, I will negotiate with him. Why isn't he down there? Well, at some point, we don't know how, but Namor, the Submariner, has arrived. So,
with a whole army.
Yes, a whole Atlantean army at that point. But yeah, you get the battle. It wasn't as, I think the previous fight between Cap and Iron Man was a lot more intense.
Yeah.
This one we didn't get as much, but the moment where all the civilians grab onto Steve, and he's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And he has the sudden realization, so wait a minute, we're fighting each other. We're not fighting for what this is. And Steve, basically says, "Arrest me, arrest Steve." Like, he makes a symbolic move, like takes off the mask. Said, "You're not arresting Captain America. You're arresting Steve Rogers. Steve Rogers broke the law." At that point, and you're left with Frank holding the mask, and then the rest of the time, it's a letter that Reed sends Sue, as you kind of see the moments that basically a good number of the heroes took up the amnesty offer. Some didn't. Luke's leading his group, and we see our Back in Black Spider-Man, which was a epic run.
Mm-hmm.
The end result of that run we don't talk about on this show ever.
It's like the cat, where it never happened,
Ooh, yes, Brent and I have a firm agreement on our opinions on that arc that shall not be mentioned.
Maybe one day we'll have.
But Back in Black is
Back
awesome.
in Black is great. One day maybe we'll have Brent on, and we'll talk about the Marvel moments we never want to talk about again. But just like the list of like
it'll be a show of silence. It'll just be a show of silence.
But yeah, no, I and it was good for Reed to get that letter, because that was the fun kind of flip of the coin. Earlier issues, Sue did that, right? Laying out why she laying out why she had to do what she did, and this is how she felt, and that's what he did. And I love seeing the whole, and especially that was such an exciting time, like you said, Back in Black. But then what we don't mention, it led to some great stuff, it led to some not so great stuff. But I remember reading it just being like, wow, we're going somewhere quite different, It's just like especially when
this is a very different Marvel universe.
Yeah, and that's always good when it feels warranted. Sometimes something big will happen and the characters go, everything has changed. You're like, not really. There's been a few people that died, of villains out there, but it's all pretty much the same. This did feel like this was a huge shift, and everything is not going to be the same ever again. And I can't wait. We talk about these next two issues coming up, but yeah, the Captain America moment, that is still. If you were to talk about the top 3 moments from the series, this is up there. It's maybe number 1. I remember this is around the time. It was after Winter Soldier. Of course, like everybody with View Breaker, I was becoming a big Captain America fan, but I loved him. I fell in love with Captain America on the animated series of Spider-Man, and then I just fell more and more in love with him as my life went on. So I remember at the movies for a while before Captain America got badass Winter Soldier, everyone was like, "Oh, Cap, he's just a good boy." I'm not a fan, but I was always like, "That's Cap's my guy," and I remember reading that, and this was kind of in that transformation, him becoming more one of my guys, and just look around and seeing all the destructions, buildings torn, streets destroyed, people hurt, battered, and just realizing that they're no better than the villains right now. They're no better than the Thunderbolts, because even if they think they're fighting for what's right, look at what is at the cost of it all, and it's just such a great moment. Like you say, he takes off his mask, you're arresting Steve Rogers. That Punisher moment was it's a moment that they didn't have to have in this issue, but the fact that it's just such a nice cherry on top to call back to what happened in the previous issue. So I just think this showed exactly who Captain America was. That's what I love about Civil War is it's an arc where at the beginning of it, you have someone like Captain America completely going against what we would normally think this character's morals is, but at the end showing, no, they are still there. Yeah, he lost his little path a little bit as far as it went this route, but at the end of the day, when he saw all the destruction, everything, no, he's still Captain America. He's still Steve Rogers. Even though he gave it up, that's still Cap. And I just love it that, yeah, it's a different type of Cap, but at the end of the day, it's still core Captain America.
Yeah, it is, and we see Sue comes back to Reed, and he even admits there's got a lot of stuff they need to work on, and then we kind of end with the mother from the Stanford incident on a helicarrier with Tony, and Tony has been named the director of Shield, and much to Maria Hill's chagrin.
Just that look, I love that panel. Just like, oh, are you kidding me?
Yep, exactly. But saying we're going to make sure that this is. It's going to be a different world, and we're going to make sure that what happened is not going to happen again, the 50-state initiative. And there we are. But like you said, we are going to have a quote-unquote epilogue piece, and these two were part of quote-unquote the epilogue of, amongst other ones. But these two I felt, and Brent echoed that last week when I revealed it, we're going to do one more week of Civil War with two comics. Mm-hmm. It's going to be Captain America number 25, and Civil War: The Confession. Make sure if this is your first time reading this stuff, okay, if I were to recommend a reading order, I would recommend Captain America number 25, then read Civil War: The Confession.
Yeah.
It'll flow much better. We'll just leave it at
Yeah.
that point. Both are on Marvel Unlimited and Comixology.
Perfect.
Excuse me, I take it back. Captain America number 25 is both on Marvel Unlimited and Comixology Unlimited. Civil War: The Confession is only on Marvel Unlimited. You can purchase it. It's got to be either, I'll even look it up right now, but they have sales and end sales so much. Let's see, Civil War: The Confession. Let's see. The browser will cooperate. Civil War: The Confession is currently $199 on Comixology Unlimited.
Boom.
So $2 at that point if you don't have Marvel Unlimited at that point. So real easy at that point. But then after that, so 2 weeks from today, we start our journey into Hawk's Pox, House of X, Powers of 10, and I can't wait.
Yeah, that's gonna be an exciting one. I'm very excited to give that a full reread because I started to when we did our X-Men episode, but when we talked about this,
I did too, and that's when I texted you saying I kind of want to do this.
Yeah, there's lots of meat to chew on that bone. So yeah, this was even as far as these next 2 issues, I'm happy to be doing them because I have read them a long time ago. They are a good wrap up. But even just this 7 has been, if we would have stopped here, it's a great one, and it's still one of my favorite Marvels one, and that's why I always wanted it to be adapted. And it's just they did such a good job with what we talked about earlier. Sometimes events can be quite disappointing. They can be messy. This was a massive event. If you look at all the characters they had in here, and they did a great job. So I'm excited for the next 2, and then I'm excited to I'm excited to get in some Hickman.
Yep, exactly. But Hawk's Box is, as I'll affectionately know it as, is they are all on Marvel Unlimited. They are available to purchase on Comixology. They did have a big sale on Marvel. They reduced it. It is currently priced at $24.99. However, I did see it this week prior, $7.99. Comixology does tons of sales all the time. So we've got 2 weeks if you don't have either and you're waiting for that sale. If not, we'll spoil the heck out of it for you. But again, you will not be disappointed reading Hawk's Box. I have yet to see someone just openly bash it. One of my favorite streaming shows, Near Mint Conditions, they used it as an example. Someone asked a question this past week on their Q&A saying, what's a way for someone just to get into American comics? It's a good jumping off point. They used Hawk's Pox as an example of just, there's history, but they do actually a really good job of getting you into this. So
yeah, it's one that it is worth the purchase. If you were thinking, oh, should I buy it? If you haven't read it, you have to, because it's one of those. I didn't read the first 2 because I did start reading initially after. I don't do it all of them, but if I'm really enjoying them, I do. Well, the first 2 people just talk so much about it. I was like, it can't be that good, and I love Hickman, but it's just like the way people were talking about it. Honestly, it felt like the way people talked about when I was reading Watchmen, like, obviously I didn't read it in live, but I mean, like, the way you'd hear the bill, like, oh, people just love this Watchmen book, like, all right, I'm going to give it a shot, and you're like, wow, I can see why this is a landmark, and it was weird to be alive, and we'll talk about that more, but it was weird to be alive during that time, people just talking about it, and then when I read it, it does legitimately feel like this could be the first X-Men comic, and I think you'd still be fine. If you'd never read X-Men, or if this was the first one, I cannot wait. I cannot wait to get into it. It's so good. And plus, you get to see Magneto with a cool ass costume. I love that costume. And visually, visually, it's just everything about that book and series is just a knockout. So I can't wait.
And I'll tell you how much Marvel is behind this. They have done something very differently, and this is how I'm collecting it outside of getting a chance to read it on Marvel Unlimited when I just don't have my books with me. They have turned what they've now titled Dawn of X, post House of X, Powers of 10. They've got 7 of them on there, 7 anthology series, and they've now solicited up to 14 volumes of basically volume 1 is all the issues 1 that came out. Next month was 2, 3, 4, and if a series gets canceled, like Fallen Angels has gotten canceled, it's wrapped up at that point. They have another Dawn of X title, so they have solicited through 14, and that is the best way to collect outside of single issues. Because you get all the issues, you don't have to go piecemealing it, because there was a issue with the New Mutants collection that's just Hickman's part. It's not, so it's a much smaller thing. So if you're buying the trade of New Mutants, I'd take a look at that background. You're not getting all of New Mutants in that first arc of New Mutants. You're getting just Hickman's writing of New Mutants. So
yeah, no good information for them. But yeah, so yeah, like Chris said, you got 2 more weeks. We'll do wrap on Civil War, which is some exciting, some very melancholy issues coming up, but they're very important. And yeah, we got some good stuff on the docket. And then, like we talked about, we'll be dropping next Wednesday. So make sure if you look at your feed, oh, it's not there. Oh, what's World Finance True Believers doing here? That's why we've done the switch up. We're gonna
you win. You win on both.
Oh
ways.
yeah, that's
you get an
yeah, that's a great way to start a Monday. And yeah, it's we're gonna try this out for a little bit. We're hoping it's gonna work out. And yeah, it's another good episode. 10 of these we've done. So it's crazy. Yeah,
good. By statistically, if we weren't on a network, we made it to 10. We should be able to press on.
Yeah.
So, but good episode. So, where can people find you, Travis?
You can find me at Travis B. Snail. We're doing tons of stuff over at Geek First. We're continuing with our Nolan Retro because as right now, 10's coming out, so we're doing that. But we have, like we talked about DC Phantom. We're going to do a crossover with GOA. There's going to be some announcements coming to the network, some that are being confirmed right now. So that could be really fun when those happen. Just stay tuned to the main feed, but I'll always be talking about them. And yeah, just whatever news, reviews, drops, things like that. And you just hit me up and just talk to me about just random stuff. I tweet about Michael Fassbender's Shame maybe once a week. So if you're a fan of that, come find me. So Chris, where can they find you to talk about Shame?
I started noticing that. I have questions.
It comes up a lot. I just love that movie, and there's always some Twitter thread of like, which Oscar guy didn't get on it, should have won. I'm like, yeah, I'm still mad. I'm still sitting there thinking about 2009. They robbed me.
you keep holding that torch, bud. All right, yes, you can find me on Twitter at Chris Balga. You can find the show on Twitter at Marvel A Podcast, and you can email the show at marvelalliancepodcast@gmail.com. You can follow the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network at GUA Pod Network. Feel free to tweet or email the show if you want to provide feedback, any questions you have, fact or fictions, listener questions, anything. Love to talk more about it. Continue to rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts, wherever your podcatcher of choice may be. Thank you, as always, Travis. Thank you, listeners. And as Stan the Man would always say, Excelsior, true believers.